Check, 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 check. Chrissy, hello. Can you hear me? Can you unmute your mic just to make sure we can hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you're all good. You can just, you can mute your mic and stuff until they call on you, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You can leave it unmuted now if you want.
You can do attorney, so there you go. And then you text it over.
welcome everybody to the what's the date today? The 24th of February, the board meeting of Mott Community College. Those who are able, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, I call this meeting to order. Jordan, can you take the roll call of who's here?
Yes, Mr. Chair. If you're present, please state your name. Trustee Dotson.
Here.
Trustee Dotson's present. Vice Chair Wolcott.
Here.
Vice Chair Wolcott is present. Trustee Reyes.
Present.
Trustee Reyes is present. Trustee Daly.
Here.
Trustee Daly is present. Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Miller is present. Trustee Couch. Trustee Couch is absent. Chair Swanson.
Here.
Chair Swanson is present. There's 6 in attendance. You have a quorum.
Okay. We have a young lady that has, well, she was here, last meeting, and it got too late and she had class. She has been selected as Achieving the Dreams Dream Scholar, and I would entertain a motion to move her up, actually, before anything here, and
Mr. Chair.
yes.
Yes, Heidi Kunelis, I would like to, if I could amend the agenda and move her up as well as item 1.19, Michael Freeman.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Discussion? I have no problem supporting that, but where do you want to put them on the agenda? What's your intent?
I apologize, right after adoption of the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, any other additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I have an addition to the agenda. I would like to make a motion that the board formally recognizes and honors Black History Month.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Any other adoptions to the agenda?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I didn't hear the second on that. Who made the second?
Art did. Okay. Any other additions?
Mr. Chair, I want to make an amendment to the minutes for the Finance Audit Committee meeting. Do you want to take that now or when we get to the consent agenda?
Well, we might, we're here right now, so go ahead.
Okay, this is the minutes for the Finance Audit Committee meeting on February 20th. After the one-liner that were Chair Daly calls the meeting together, I move amendment of that second paragraph to read as follows. The proposed agenda was reviewed with 2 items from the proposed regular meeting agenda having been placed on the committee's agenda, found not to be pertinent to the meeting of the Finance Audit Committee and were therefore not discussed at this meeting, period.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Could you restate your motion?
That the paragraph to be amended read, the proposed agenda was reviewed with two items from the proposed regular meeting agenda that had been placed on the committee's agenda and found not to be pertinent were not considered at this meeting.
So if I understand you, you are adjusting the minutes to replace the word few with two, TWO, is that correct?
Yes, TWO.
Thank you.
There's been a second discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, I think we've had all the additions to the agenda. Now we move along to the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we adopt the agenda as amended.
All right, it's motion made to accept the agenda as amended. It's been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Wendy, is this where you wanted to move the Achieving the Dream?
Yes, right after adoption of the agenda.
Okay, let me explain a little bit. The Achieving the Dream represents a network of more than 300 colleges committed to closing achievement gaps and accelerating student success through innovative, evidence-based community college interventions and programs. Heidi was one of eight students out of 61 applicants representing 33 colleges selected for this honor. She attended the 2025 Achieving the Dream Annual Conference in Philadelphia, which took place the 17th through the 21st of February. During the conference, Heidi was presented with a financial award in support of her academically and personally. So my congratulations are to you, Heidi. Job well done. And the Mott Foundation, the Mott family is very proud of you.
This experience was absolutely amazing. I'm so happy to be in the Gateway program and that Mott has a Gateway program that allowed me to then be a part of ATD. It was so insightful and I met a lot of people, I got a lot of connections. I'm so excited to have moved further in my path in college. So thank you guys for also giving me the opportunity to be in the position I'm in.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chair and Madam Interim President and Trustees, I would only add that last week I was completely in awe. Heidi represented us extremely well. She spoke in a room in front of about 2,000 people, and you would not have known that she was not a professional motivational speaker.
Jordan, is there any communications?
Mr. Chair, I think.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
excuse me. Almost forgot Michael. We're going to, it's the honorary degree, correct? So, Michael, where are you at? Oh, there you are. Okay, so how do we want to do this? Art's
Mr.
going?
Chair, I move, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I move approval of item 9(1.19) at this time.
Second.
Second. Okay. It is the mission of Mott Community College to provide high-quality, accessible, and affordable educational opportunities and services that cultivate student success and individual development and improve the overall quality of life in a multicultural community. Accomplishing this task requires the leadership and guidance of individuals committed to providing the highest degree of excellence as it relates to the governance of the college. Michael Freeman was elected to the Board of Trustees in 2011. His tenure on the board included serving as chair, treasurer, and on the 2015-2016 Board Goals and Objectives Ad Hoc Committee. He currently serves as the executive director of the Genesee County Land Bank Authority, having been employed in that capacity since 2020. A graduate of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, he began his career as a community organizer working with the local Initiative Support Corporation AmeriCorps program. He continued his work in community and economic development as a coordinator for training and technical assistance at the Michigan Community Service Commission and, subsequently, as a chief operating officer and associate director for programmatic underwriting for the City of Detroit Housing and Revitalization Department, overseeing the City of Detroit's Community Development Block Grant Program. As a board trustee, Mr. Freeman was instrumental in promoting Mott's Culinary Arts Institute, a state-of-the-art facility located in downtown Flint, Michigan. The Culinary Arts Institute has offered Mott students a superior education experience in the art of cooking since its opening in June 2019. On the basis of the preceding information, the following resolution is recommended. Be it resolved that the Charles Stewart Mott Community College Board of Trustees confers upon Mr. Michael Freeman an honorary associate degree from Mott Community College and express its deep appreciation and respect for his years of service as a member of the Mott Community College Board of Trustees. Thank you, Michael.
Michael, could you come up, please?
Mr. Chair, you do have to have a vote on it. You do have to have a vote on the resolution. The resolution is a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair,
Discussion?
call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion did pass. I can. Michael, the Board of Trustees, by virtue of the authority vested in them by the state of Michigan, has conferred upon you, Michael Freeman, the degree of honorary associate with all the rights, privileges, and honors thereto pertaining here and elsewhere, granted in the county of Genesee, state of Michigan, this February 24th, 2025. Okay. Okay, where are we here? Communications. Jordan?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we've had one communication that was sent by F. Jack Belzer of Flint, Michigan. Dear Sir, Madame, enclosed herewith, please find true copies of the petition pursuant to MCL 211.56A, affidavit of treasurer, and request for hearing on motion relative to the above referenced matter. Also enclosed, please find the proposed order to strike unpaid personal property taxes from assessment rolls, which our office will be submitting to the court at the time of the motion hearing, which is scheduled for Monday, February 10th, 2025 at 8:30 p.m. in person before Judge Hannibal. Should you have any questions concerning this letter, please feel free to contact our office at your convenience. Sincerely, F. Jack Belzer.
Any other?
That would conclude communications.
Okay. Comments from the public? Before we get started with that, I'd like to make a few comments here. Our last meeting, it was said, and I hope to preside over these meetings without the contention that has marked the previous meetings. It's time to turn a new page on that. One of my responsibilities as chair is to enforce the board policy and to ensure that these meetings are conducted in accordance with the law, board policy, Robert's Rules of Order, and my remarks now that I'm going to make are in capacity as the presiding officer over this meeting. First, I want to share with you our board policy 5813. Mott Community College encourages and promotes an environment of civility and mutual respect amongst its diverse employees, student body. Faculty, staff, and students should treat one another in a respectful manner with civility, honesty, and courtesy. This policy should also apply to the members of the Board of Trustees. And I will do my part to see that this is what happens. With regard to the public comment today, I would like to mention that a change in practice has been made on my initiative with regard to the written comments. Comments in writing will still be accepted. However, they will no longer be read out loud by a staff member, but will be submitted to each trustee present and for their review and consideration. The practice of reading the written comments was adopted during COVID. And just like COVID, we no longer need face masks. We don't have to stand 6 feet apart. So the practice of reading them out loud is no longer needed. There's no board policy or provision of the Open Meetings Act that requires this practice to continue. And it is one way that we can reduce the length of our long meetings as they have been. Having said that, personal comments shall be welcome still in accordance with Board Policy 1640. And I also want to remind everyone the right of free speech does not allow defamatory or hate speech. Speech that violates the law will not be tolerated, and I will rule the remarks being out of order if they are spoken. I respectfully ask that each of you bear in mind the rules of the civility and the ones I spoke of early in my remarks. So having said that, Jordan, personal comments?
Point of order. The decision that you made to retract the policy of allowing someone else to read comments, was that an action that was taken by the board, and does it require board action to undo it?
Pardon me?
When it first started during COVID, was it action by this board that allowed that to happen? And if so, doesn't it require action by the board to undo it?
I am not aware. We can look at that, and I can get you an answer to that.
I'd ask that the change be withheld until we have an answer to that, because what I don't want to have happen is us violate, if we've been doing it because it was an action of the board and it was not undone, I would not want to see us violate the practice that we've been doing.
I understand that, and Jordan, can you look that up right now?
I can look. I don't know if I'll successfully
good.
find it
You'll
in such a short amount of time, but I will definitely look, so.
Art, that was, the policy was never changed. Yeah, I do know that they allowed Zoom meetings also. Was that?
Yeah, that was part of a directive that we got from the state of Michigan.
From the state, I believe,
Yeah.
yes.
Uh-huh.
So,
For the Zoom meetings. Yes.
okay.
And he doesn't have to find out the answer right now. I mean, as long as we have it before the next meeting, so that way the policy, as it's put out, when it's posted, we do that, because I don't want to, you know, in the interest of.
Well, we could be here all night.
Move to
Wait,
table.
And I was going to, Mr. Chair, I was going to say, if we only have one public comment that came in writing, then we don't have any more tonight, so we could probably just. Oh, we only read one? We only read one? Yeah.
Mr. Chair? I move we table the motion to consideration and go ahead and read the 3 letters that we got, and then let legal counsel or whoever do the research that's necessary for this so we can get it right.
Second.
Yeah.
There's been a motion and seconded. The motion again is to table and go ahead and read the,
There is no motion on the floor. There's a point of order that was raised by Trustee Reyes. The chair indicated that he would look into it. Trustee Reyes suggested it could be postponed to looking into, so that's where it's at. Someone wants to turn that into a motion, that would be appropriate, but there is no motion on the floor right now.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we do our written public comments at the next meeting until Jordan finds the answer to that.
okay, so your motion is to, well, no, wait a minute, John had a motion on the floor, so,
Was it a motion?
yes, he
Oh.
made the motion. Yeah.
Could he restate his motion?
Table until the March meeting and read the letters that we received tonight.
What is the it? Table it. That's what I'm asking. So I need to know what the motion was. What's the table?
The written public comments.
The decision on whether or not we would enact the written public comments at this meeting.
So your motion is to postpone the decision on the public comments till next meeting, correct, Trustee Daly?
Let's get it straight, then would you read the motion that Trustee Reyes made?
Yeah, I had a point of order, just saying that
Pose.
they didn't want to change it. Didn't
there
have.
a motion on the floor?
There was no motion on the floor.
I withdraw the tabling and make a motion to postpone consideration of this until the March meeting, and then we read the 3 letters.
Turned it back off.
I move that we postpone the consideration of, with changing the procedure for written correspondence until the March meeting.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Yes.
If this motion passes, I'm in favor, but if this motion passes, then to me, that says that the 3 public comments that were turned in be read by Jordan as we've been doing. And if not, I'd make that an amendment.
My intent in making the motion was that that those comments would be read at this meeting, and the rationale behind it originally was that this is a motion that we want to be, first of all, we want it to be clear, and second of all, we want it to be correct and aligned with what we've done in the past. And I want to be sure we get a good legal opinion on it.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Jordan, could you?
I believe Diane has that motion.
No?
The motion is to postpone changing the procedure regarding the reading of written public comments to the March meeting, and that would include reading the comments that came in today. Is that your motion, Trustee Daly?
Yes.
My intent in the motion is that the consideration would be at the March meeting, and that we would, at this meeting, read the 3 public comments that we have. If that's what you're saying, yes.
Yes, that's correct. So if there's no other, you want to call the roll? Do you want me to do it, or Jordan?
You can, that's fine.
Okay. Trustee Daly?
Yes.
Trustee Dotson?
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Reyes?
Yes.
Trustee Walcott?
Yes.
And Chair Swenson?
Yes.
All right,
Excuse me. Motion has passed.
the first comment has been submitted by Elizabeth Jordan. Oh, she's here, okay.
I'm here. I'm a first-time visitor here, so I thought you had to submit them in advance, so I was an overachiever, apparently. But thank you to the chair and to the trustees for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking to you as a member of the public who has a high school student attending classes on this campus. I'm concerned about 2 issues that appear to violate the college's stated policies. The first issue I want to raise relates to the appointment process for the college's president. I watched the video from the December 3rd trustee meeting and was utterly dismayed by what unfolded. One of the items on your agenda tonight is the selection of a new attorney because your previous one resigned in December rather than be part of what he deemed to be an illegal act. That illegal act was the failure of Trustee Couch and two others to disclose a conflict of interest with the interim president ahead of voting on her employment as required by the college's own policy. It compounded the already highly irregular move of skipping an open search process for such an important leadership position. To her credit, the interim president stated at the December meeting that she called upon trustees to conduct an appropriate national search rather than moving ahead with the appointment. This is a call she repeated earlier this month when she spoke to the Rotary Club of Flint. I joined her in that call to conduct a reputable national search for a permanent president. The college, and honestly, the interim president, deserves a fair and open process, not one clouded in suspicion and complicity. For the second issue, I want to first remind you of what the college stands for. This is from your website. Quote, Mott Community College recognizes that diversity, equity, and inclusion are essential to Mott Community College's mission and the core of the MCC experience. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are not limited to ensuring various constituencies are accounted for, but commitment to and implementation of an overarching philosophy that starts with a belief in the value of varying perspectives, a promise of mutual respect, and intentional actions that ensure fairness and inclusivity, end quote. This commitment is crucial to uphold because Mott Community College is a place where people of all backgrounds should be able to flourish. Recently surfaced social media posts by Trustee Couch reflect a brazen attitude of bigotry. Her comments against Black people and LGBTQ folks are incompatible with the college's commitment to the promise of mutual respect and intentional actions that ensure fairness and inclusivity. I therefore call upon her to resign.
Thank you. Jordan?
The next comment has been submitted by Crystal Dillard. Dear MCC trustee, I am greatly concerned by the information that has recently come to light. Trustee Couch posted racist and homophobic comments on social media. I do not believe that she is capable of making unbiased decisions on behalf of the student body that includes people of color, gay students, and transgender individuals. I am deeply concerned that her personal biases are not in keeping with the multicultural focus that is so important, so much a part of Mott Community College's mission. Trustee Couch's open hostility towards people of color and other vulnerable populations is creating a malignant environment for students, faculty, and staff. Because of her opposition to the foundational principles of Mott Community College's mission, I would urge Trustee Couch to resign to open up space for someone more interested in upholding these foundational principles to hold a board seat. Respectfully, Crystal Dillard, concerned community member. The next comment has been submitted by Paul Jordan. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to share my comments. I would do so in person if I could, but I am sidelined for the moment by some surgery. I was alarmed and disappointed to read Trustee Janet Couch's Facebook comments disparaging people who are African American or homosexual. I do not know how bigoted Ms. Couch is in her heart, but her comments are certainly evidence that at the time she posted them, she viewed African American and gay people as alien and less than people, like her white European American heterosexual woman. She evidently saw those people as caricatures not as real, whole people like her. Has Miss Couch lived her life in a social bubble containing only people like herself? That she felt so free to post those things suggests to me that she was confident that those who would read them shared her beliefs. The responses suggest that she was right. As Americans and human beings, we have various beliefs, but in my opinion, the ignorance of real black and homosexual people displayed in Miss Couch's post disqualifies her to be a trustee of a college where half the students are racial or gender minorities. She does not see herself in people like them. Instead, she sees them as alien. Yet as a trustee, she has the power to shape their education and their future. Someone once said, "By their fruits shall you know them." The values expressed in Janet Couch's Facebook post are rotten fruit, and now we know her. For the good of the college and its students, she should resign. And that would conclude the written portion of the public comment.
How about the in-person?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have comments submitted by Michelle Ryder of Grand Blanc, Michigan, on the topic of thanking interim president.
Good evening. Michelle Ryder, Grand Blanc. First, I want to express my gratitude to the interim president for strongly and publicly condemning the racism and homophobia exhibited by Trustee Couch. There is no place for this at Mott Community College or in our community. I lost my spot. So it's important that leadership speak out clearly and unequivocally when this behavior occurs. Her posts were horrible, and it leaves a bad reflection on the college. So I was really happy to see that happen. I also appreciated Ms. Richardson-Snell's presentation at the Rotary Club, where she also stood firmly by what she said in December in terms of best practices for the college, in terms of hiring the permanent president. She stated in December and again 2 weeks ago that conducting a national search is the best interest of the college. This process ensures that Mott identifies the most qualified leader who reflects the diverse needs, aspirations, and excellence of our community. Also, I would like an update on the offer by Ridgeway White to fund the presidential search. When asked about this at the Rotary meeting, the interim president said that she wasn't sure because it is board business. So I was hoping that now that we're all together, we could get some clarity on where that stands. I was really happy to get to know more about you at that meeting and see that you're truly doing what's best for the college, because that shows a lot of integrity. So my hope is that this board, as Chair Swanson said, can move past the chaos that was brought on by the former chair and support a transparent national search process and to continue to take meaningful action when harmful behavior is exhibited by board members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jordan?
The next comment's been submitted by Emily Monteroso of Grand Blanc, Michigan, on the topic of public notice process.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for allowing public comment and open space for our community to interact with our elected officials in what is one of the most critical institutions of Genesee County. Educating children and raising them through to adulthood is what you're charged with, and I appreciate the work you do. However, for us to participate in these meetings, we need to know the following. Why was the meeting for tonight moved And what is the process for moving meetings like this? We need to have consistency so community members can participate. To that end, what was not prepared by me was a consideration of the public comment is to be public. So if you do create a system by where written comment is not read aloud, it still needs to be provided to all in the room. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your consideration, and I appreciate you valuing public comment, as this is an important part of this process.
Thank you very much.
The next comment submitted by Percy Whitmer of Flint, Michigan, on the topic recognition of Michael Freeman, next steps for new board.
Man, good evening, board. Before I make my recognitions to Michael Freeman, which is all ties together, right? There's this quote I wanted to mention within that, which relies within the context of what I'm about to say. So the quote is that we must learn, in honor of Black History Month, so we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or perish as fools, right? So that's from the great Dr. Martin Luther King. And going along with that philosophy, I would like to also give recognition to Michael Freeman, right? For all the great things that he has done and is still doing. And he has been a major intricate role, not only to this board, but also to myself. It is not private that I ran for this board and this opportunity to be amongst you all, which was and still is a great opportunity. But I'm extremely grateful, and I wanted it to be public. And I wanted individuals to know that this individual, Michael Freeman, and amongst others who have been a part of this process, have made this great. My last comments as far as next steps for board. So, Chair has mentioned civility, right? You've mentioned the concept and the things about civility. So yet again, as it's been mentioned before by another individual, which is the mission of Mott Community College. The mission of Mott Community College is to provide high quality, accessible, and affordable educational opportunities and services that cultivate student success and individual development and improve the overall quality of life in a multicultural community. In none of this mission, I heard specific parties, specific affiliations, and specific organizations. All what I heard was a multicultural community. So if we focus and we reel in, as we have a new board, Chair, you said that we're looking to turn over a new leaf. So if we keep that in mind and we keep those things moving forward and moving ahead, I believe that we can be successful, and Mott Community College won't wither away, but we can turn it to something better, right? So yet again, I will say this quote again: we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. And I do not see many of these things taking place. I wanna encourage you guys. Let's work together and let's move Mott Community College forward. For the young people I speak for, and for the college. Thank you.
The next comment submitted by Paula Cunningham of Swartz Creek, Michigan, on the topic of policy change.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Paula Cunningham of Swartz Creek. I sit today in front of you asking for your support and your guidance. I was recently dismissed from Mott Community College's nursing program, 7.5 weeks before graduation, due to being unsuccessful in my second to last class by 3.5 points. What I am asking of the board is to review the remittance policy put forth by Mott Community College As you know, we are a society right now that has a major nursing shortage. I have dedicated the last 13 years of my life as a medical assistant. During the last 5 years, I have tried to further my education here at Mott Community College in the nursing program. After being unsuccessful in this class, I reached out to some of my instructors and asked for letters of recommendation to support me getting back into the nursing program, as well as 3 prominent area physicians that supported me. Lastly, I also submitted a letter from another previous student who was in the same situation as myself and was allowed back into the program. By allowing this other student back into the program, Mott Community College has set a precedent to allow students that have been unsuccessful in the program the opportunity back into the program. I am asking that Mott Community College reevaluates the readmittance into the nursing program so that we can have a higher graduation rate in the nursing program. The last information that I had found was from the last year's cohort of 2023 with a completion rate of 80.43 and the NCLEX pass rate of 100%. I feel these numbers show that Mott Community College has room to improve on getting students graduated and out into the workforce. At the end of the day, isn't that what we're trying to accomplish? Is to get students ready to apply the education they receive here at Mott Community College in the real world and be productive workers in our community and not throwing away 5 years worth of education over 3.5 points. If anybody would like to reach out to me on this topic, please feel free to email me at paula.cunningham15@outlook.com. Thank you so much for your consideration on this topic. And here are the letters I would like to present to the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jordan?
The next comment has been submitted by Bobby Walton of Davison, Michigan, on the topic of procedure, ethics, and public interest.
Good evening. No surprises there. I've been talking to you about those 3 subjects for a long time. Regarding the subject of procedure, I followed what I thought was an appropriate procedure by sending a letter of complaint to your chairman about an ethics question regarding this board's behavior toward the question of Janet Couch and her ethical challenges. I'm going to read to you the letter now because I have not heard from your chairman on how he intends to proceed with my complaint. Dear Chair Swanson, it is the responsibility of this board to take action to correct the vote to hire Shonda Richardson Snell to be president of Mott Community College, and to do so without the participation of trustee Janet Couch. I'm writing to register my complaint about the violation of ethics and of MCC bylaws and policies when trustee Couch was allowed to vote in this action. When trustee Couch cast her vote under a clear ethical violation of conflict of interest, this action was considered illegal by your former board attorney. My request that the MCC board revisit the above action and remove trustee Couch from the vote is based on the following facts. Number 1, Shonda Richardson Snell was hired by the MCC board in July 2024 to be interim president of Mott Community College. At the same time, the board was seeking a president to replace Dr. Beverly Walker Graffia. Number 2, the contract between Richardson Snell and MCC was signed by Chair Everman and Richardson Snell on August 30th, 2024. Chair Everman was notified on September 9th, 2024, that Richardson Snell planned on using Dana Whitehead Hopper, daughter of trustee Janet Couch, as her realtor to assist her in purchasing a home in Genesee County. This, in spite of the fact the use of the president's home was made available to her, and she was hired to be the interim president, not the president. This agreement created an apparent financial conflict of interest between Richardson Snell and a member of the MCC board, Janet Couch. However, Chair Everman ruled there was no ethical conflict. Communication between MCC Legal Counsel Brickley and Chair Everman in August included the following concerns, quote, processes for ethical complaints, interim president contract, and other legal issues. This was submitted by Garen Lukow Miller on an invoice dated 8/14/24. Also included in this invoice is the following communication of 8/26/2024, phone call with Trustee Walcott regarding presidential selection process, possible ethics issues, and other legal matters. Number 6, Everman reached out to Trustee Couch, and she stated she lacked any information on the situation. And this is part of the MCC official response to the Higher Learning Commission inquiry. Number 7, Chair Everman ruled there was no conflict of interest in the enterprise, yet by this time, Trustee Couch knew of her daughter's financial interest with Richardson Snell. Ignorance of the enterprise was no longer an operative excuse in what was an apparent conflict of interest. In November 2024, MCC Board Attorney Brickley advised Everman there was a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict with the involvement of Trustee Couch in the board action to hire Richardson Snell to be president of MCC. At about the same time, Richardson Snell closed on the purchase of 2 properties in Genesee County, Dana Whitehead Hopper acting as her agent. During the reconvening of the November 18th board meeting on November 25th, Trustee Swanson moved to reconsider the previous motion to hire Richardson Snell, which motion was made by Couch that had failed. Trustee Couch again made the motion to hire Richardson Snell. This time, with the Couch vote, the motion passed. A note was passed to Chair Everman by substitute board counsel at the November 18th meeting. He asked if Everman would allow Couch to vote when the vote was being taken to hire Richardson Snell. In spite of what seemed to be advice from counsel, Everman allowed the vote to go forward. Couch moved that Richardson Snell be offered the presidency and voted on the motion. Board Counsel Brickley resigned as board attorney at the December 2nd, 2024 meeting of the board. Brickley presented to the board his legal opinion about the Couch conflict of interest and ethical violations. He restated his objection that Couch be allowed to vote on the Richardson Snell job offer. He called the violation of an apparent conflict of interest illegal and said he was resigning as board attorney to save his standing and his license as an attorney. I'm filing this complaint with the current Mott Community College Board because of the facts I have cited above. I request you investigate and decide to take action to bring your board into compliance with ethical practices as a board of trustees for an institution of higher education. I request that you do not allow Trustee Couch to vote on this matter. Sincerely, Bobby Walton. I want to add that I believe that by pulling together all of the facts regarding what has happened, that it's clear that this board has the opportunity to take an action to clarify what was a mistake and to make this right by doing the right thing for the public and going public for an exploration of a nationwide search for a president for the college, and to consider that Trustee Couch not be allowed to vote on the matter. I also want to add that I like the fact that this board is trying to follow procedure so that the public interest is protected. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Bobby, since you read that out loud, would you like a formed response? I can get you one. Okay. I'm still working on it right now.
All right, the next comment has been submitted by Ann Figueroa of Mount Morris, Michigan, on the topic FOIA issues and public comment changes.
Good evening, trustees. I'm here again to speak to you about trust. Trust can be established in multiple ways. One way is to follow established rules, procedures, and legal statutes. It seems that we don't always agree on the direction of this college, but trust can be established if you follow the rules, procedures, practices, and legal statutes that govern this body. I have two issues. The second one you somewhat addressed, and I do appreciate that. But the first one is one of the proper, I have two issues. One is the following a proper procedure for the Freedom of Information requests. In January, I submitted a request for certain information. Immediately, an extension was requested, which is following the law. I was told that my information would be given to me on February 15th. February 15th came and went. February 16th came and went. And I received my information February 17th via email as requested. However, the information I got was wrong. It said I was requesting something that I didn't even ask for. So I had to call the office and clarify to find out if they indeed did have my information and when can I get it. I was also reminded, the staff that I spoke to, that it was beyond the statute of response. They missed the deadline. I was told it needed to be reviewed prior to sending. Fair enough, but it needs to be reviewed before the deadline. It's unfortunate that the person responsible for that area put their staff in a position of having to explain to a constituent that their timelines are being ignored because a person had needed to get it reviewed. It's not what she said, but that's my take on it, based on the lack of trust in this administration. We'll get around to it when we can. But that's not the right response. That's not the right attitude. And again, this does not build trust. This only continues a lack of trust in the staff, administration, and ultimately in the Board of Trustees to allow this casual attitude towards the FOIA process. As an HR manager for 30 years, I garnered trust with my staff, my managers, my supervisors, directors, and boards whom I reported to because I adhered to the timelines. If someone was enrolling in benefits, we had a deadline. If someone needed a discipline, I had to adhere to the timelines of the discipline. Trust can be built with consistent adherence to the rules. Now, the second part, you've already addressed some of it. I did notice the change in the form, the public notice form. And I'll revise it as I go along. The second appears you're changing the process for public comment. What was not clear is how you're going to review. The word review and consider was never a part of the original public notice, and now it says review and consider. So I'm just making sure that you've clarified it with the comments that are written will be distributed, and I second the other person who said they should be available with the agendas at the front so that everybody can see them. Again, to maybe sometimes avoid repetition. And the process that you followed, I think, I appreciate the tabling of this until next month. If something comes up like this again, give us a little heads up. Give us a little heads up. I appreciated you did in the beginning of this meeting, but if we didn't know. The people online didn't know that their stuff wouldn't be read. So putting it back a month makes sense. I appreciate that change and that shift. That allows for a more even flow. I understand why you wouldn't want to read them too streamlined, but that was not made clear on any of the forms. Because it also said no one will read your comments. Now, another question, does that include if someone can't come and their friend says, hey, can you read this for me? That is also not clear. So I have comments we've had multiple times where somebody couldn't make it, so please address that when you review this for next month. But it does garner trust when you have consistency. Any change, let us know ahead of time. We'll work with you because we want to trust you as much as you want us to be quiet about some of these little things. I don't blame you. I don't blame you for wanting to cut down this time. But talk to us. Give us notice. Let us be involved. And I think you'll find that mutual trust will get you further than dictates and changes in policy, and missing deadlines. It will go further for you. We can work together, as Perry had said. We work together, we are stronger together than we are by ourselves. We're with you. Work with us. We'll work with you. So help us to continue to see that you're trustworthy, that build that trust with the public. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next comment has been submitted by Carrie Devon on the topic of board attorney.
Good evening. Chair Swanson, the undersigned employee unions are submitting a formal complaint to you pursuant to Board Policy 1325, which states, quote, "If the college receives a complaint that a board member has violated this policy, the complaint shall be referred to the board chairperson, or if the complaint is against the chairperson, to the vice chairperson, the trustee who is the subject of the complaint shall be notified and given an opportunity to respond to the chairperson or vice chairperson if appropriate, who at his or her discretion shall determine whether to take the complaint to the full board for consideration. Further, the chairperson or vice chairperson, if appropriate, shall have the discretion to investigate the complaint, including the authority to engage an outside consultant to undertake the investigation. You may, if he or she chooses, do so prior to notifying the board of the complaint. Any report from an outside consultant shall be disseminated to the board members prior. All meetings to hear complaints shall occur at an open meeting unless the board member who is the subject of the complaint requests a closed session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Trustee Couch has now violated several board policies, and we urge you to further investigate. Although we had all hoped that a new year and a new board would make a fresh start for our governing body, the January 27th, 2025 meeting revealed that Mott will continue to be seen in an even more negative light by the community. Board member Trustee Couch's behavior raises the most significant concerns. In December, we publicly heard about a conflict of interest raised by the board's own attorney between Trustee Couch's daughter and interim President Richardson Snell. William Brickley issued a legal memo highlighting the conflict and raised serious ethical concerns that the conflict violated the board's own policy. When the board ignored their attorney's warning, the result was his resignation and an investigation by the Higher Learning Commission. And now Trustee Couch has come under public scrutiny for posting a number of hostile and discriminatory comments on social media. Board Policy 1325 states board members should maintain loyalty to the interests of the citizens of the college district. This loyalty supersedes any loyalty to advocacy or interest groups and membership on other boards or staffs. It also supersedes the personal interest of any board member acting as an individual consumer or college services. Given the nature of her race-focused posts, we cannot see Trust Couch being willing or able to fairly and objectively serve the interests of the diverse group of citizens that comprise the college district. In addition, Board Policy 1365.1 states Mott Community College is committed to providing a work environment that is free of discrimination and unlawful harassment. Actions, words, jokes, or comments based on an individual's sex, race, ethnicity, age, religion, or any other legally protected characteristic will not be tolerated. Trustee Couch's posts are in clear and direct violation of this policy. Putting basic human decency aside, the governing body of any institution is expected to uphold its own policies at all times. Once again, Trustee Couch's actions demonstrate noncompliance with the board's policies and raises serious ethical concerns. Furthermore, Board Policy 5814 states the board recognizes that diversity, equity, and inclusion are essential to Mott Community College's mission and the core of the MCC experience. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are not bad words, and not limited to ensuring various constituencies are accounted for, but commitment to and implementation of an overarching philosophy that starts with the belief in the value of varying perspectives. A promise of mutual respect and intentional actions that ensure fairness and inclusivity. The vitriolic rhetoric of Trustee Couch's posts clearly goes against this core principle. She clearly cannot fairly uphold the mission of the college with such a racially charged worldview. We trust we will see swift and appropriate leadership and action from you in response to these multiple policy violations. We urge you to initiate a formal investigation into Trustee Couch's actions as outlined in Board Policy 1325. Respectfully, Mott Community College Education Association Faculty Union, Services Employees International Union Administrative Support Unit of Local 517M, the Service Employees International Union Public Safety Officers of Local 517M, Mott Community College Professional Technical Unit MEA-NEA, United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, UAW, and the Supervisory and Managerial Unit of Local Union 2112. On behalf of all of the unions, thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes public comment.
Okay. Let's move along to the item 6, the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I see none. So, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. Opposed? Nay? No? Okay. Informational reports, Mr. Daly?
Nothing from MCCA at this time.
Okay. Art?
The ACCT held its NLS, National Legislative Summit, in Washington, D.C. on February 9th through February 12th of 2025. Several of our board members were in attendance, where we discussed issues facing community colleges, not only locally but nationally. We were able to meet with the staff of Representative McDonald-Rivet as well as Senator Peters, and then we're in attendance during a joint meeting with Senator Slotkin and Peters, where we expressed the needs of our community college and Flint community in specifically.
Thank you, Art. Moving along, Section 8, unfinished business. The chair's appointment of standing committees. I believe there's 2 left to make appointee to. That would be the finance and the policy. Is that correct?
Yes, from last meeting, there would be 2 openings left for those 2 committees.
Okay, for the Finance Committee, I would like to put myself on that, along with Mr. Reyes and Mr. Daly. And the Policy Committee, I would like to put myself on that with Trustee Wolcott, and I believe Kenyatta, you're on that, correct? Is that correct?
I was on personnel.
Art is on the policy with us.
Oh, Art, okay, sorry. But I would like to put myself on that committee also.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
A question.
Yes, sir.
With your appointment, when you say you're appointing yourself to those 2 committees, you're appointing yourself to those committees as a trustee, correct? Not as the chairperson?
Correct.
Okay.
Then, now, item 1.08, do we need to vote on that? So I would entertain a motion to accept.
Second. Oh, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. 1.09, appointment to replace former trustee Everman on the ad hoc committee. I would appoint Wendy Wolcott to that. Okay. All right, new business. We have 1.20.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to establish, it'll be Chair Swanson, Trustee Daly, and Trustee Wolcott on the ad hoc committee.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Who's chair on that committee?
Doesn't need to be me. It's
Not me.
Me?
That would be, that's between you and Wendy. I don't
Yes, go
care.
for
It
it.
won't be me.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. 1.20, resolution for an amended budget. I believe Larry will speak on that.
Good evening. Okay, we got it all. So yes, I would like to do or review the 24-25 amended budget this evening. Next slide, please. The college has a board policy, 3100, that requires the administration to present budget revisions to the board as necessary, but not less than twice a year in February and June. Next slide. The college's funding sources come from three primary sources, I guess. In order from the largest to smallest is tuition. Keep in mind, tuition does include federal and state grants such as Pell, grants and loans, Michigan Reconnect, and Future for Frontliners. These are state grants. The second is local property taxes. And this is from the perpetual and operating millages levied by the college, and then finally state aid. The other source of funding that you'll see up there, 7%, this is from the Balinger Trust, endowment and grants, and other consisting mainly of interest earnings and auxiliary revenues such as bookstore commissions, catering, and vending. Next slide, please. So the proposed amendment to our revenues is an overall upward amendment of $1.2 million. It's comprised of the following: a $2.2 million increase in tuition and fees, a $1.5 million increase in state appropriations other, and this is consisting of the one-time refund of the MIPSER's college, which is the college's pension plan. Grants and others being reduced by $134,000, and that includes a combination of a reduction in the designated fund transfer and a reduction of the interest the college was receiving from the Culinary New Market Tax Credit Agreement. A decrease of $1 million from the transfers from future funding, which in effect is a return to savings due to better than anticipated overall budget projections from the beginning of the year. A $1 million decrease in the UAAL payment from the state of Michigan. Keep in mind that is a in and an out, so we'll also have a reduction in the expense on the fringes. And then the final, there's a net $10,000 combined increase in Balinger Trust and property tax stabilization funds. Next slide, please. So on the expenditure side, the college is amending the following. There's a $732,000 decrease in salaries and wages, and that's a result of reducing the college's open position pool at mid-year. A net $217,000 decrease in fringe benefits, resulting from a $900,000 error in the original budget upload related to FICA taxes being calculated incorrectly in our budgeting software, and then a $1.3 million reduction in the recording of our UAAL pass-through, a $500,000 increase in our vacation sick liability, and $117,000 in net numerous minor amendments across all of our departments. There's a $915,000 increase in contracted services due to a $385,000 increase in use of contractor personnel for open positions, a $313,000 increase in ITS contracts, and the remaining $216,000 in net numerous minor amendments across the college departments. Materials and supplies is being amended upward by $406,000 in the areas of academic supplies of $145,000, $161,000 in facilities, a $72,000 increase in LERTA, and the remaining $28,000 is in net numerous minor amendments across the college departments as well. Facilities rent is being reduced by $387,000, and this is primarily from the net savings from acquiring the culinary building. So we will not be making rent payments on that any longer. Next slide, please. Utilities and insurance is being increased $29,000, and this is due to a $35,000 increase in insurance costs, offset by a $6,000 reduction in utilities. Transfers out is being increased overall by $12,000, which is from a combination of the formation of new energy savings account that was set up by the board, and a decrease in CLEF advisor scholarships and transfers to Lapeer. Operations communications is increasing $256,000, and this is primarily due to increase in ITS licensing costs and the impact of the subscription-based information technology arrangement, which is SABITA, and that's a GASB pronouncement that we need to recognize and report each year. Equipment improvements are being increased $156,000 due to Lapeer upgrades in the PA system and concrete flat work. Next slide, please. So as you can see, as presented, the overall 24-25 amended budget shows a net surplus increase of $334,578 with an ending net asset percent of 16.8%, which is within the board policy of 10 to 20% of operating expenses. Next slide, please. The college also has several other funds, smaller funds that are required by generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, and the Government Accounting Standards Board. Such funds that we have are the designated funds, scholarships, student enrichment, student technology fees, to name a few. The auxiliary funds, which are the business-type activities that we have on campus, such as vending, bookstore commissions, and daycare. And then the net profit of all of this is transferred to the general fund and helps support college operations. Next slide, please. Another one of these funds is a debt retirement fund, which is specifically required by GAAP, GASB, and law to be kept separate from all other funds of the college and used only to pay the college debt obligations as they occur. The last type of college's other funds are instructional technology, which is board designated for student technology needs, and then the planned transfer from our capital projects account for minimum required capital obligations related to copiers, Perkins Match, and planned transfer to reserves. Next slide, please. As I just mentioned about reserves, the board has policies regarding the college reserves or savings, and as you can see, there are 4 there. All reserve requirements are within the policy requirements. Next slide, please. The college also has designated reserves that are not board policy required, but designated for functions deemed a strategic priority at the time. These are student success and professional development funds, which were set up a few years back. Also presented is a future funding reserve, which primarily consists of the savings from the HERF monies received during the pandemic and act as a budget stabilization fund while our enrollment recovers to pre-pandemic levels. Next slide, please. And finally, the next considerations that you'll have, there's a March tuition resolution that we'll bring forward, and then also we will be starting the budget process for next year in March as well. That ends my amended budget presentation.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion? I'll let the board know, Finance Director Gothard and I met for about an hour and a half while we reviewed this proposal in its entirety, and thank you very much for your candor in that. And I'm recommending approval as treasurer. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Seeing none? John, did you move to approve that?
Yes.
Yes. Did we have a second? All right. Okay, discussion's done. All right, let's vote. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair, should we wait until trustee Dotson's back? She's walking.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan.
So the motion is for the approval by trustee Daly, seconded by trustee Reyes, on item 1.20, resolution for amended budget. Trustee Dotson,
Yes.
trustee Wolcott,
Yes.
trustee Reyes,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
Chair Swanson.
Yes.
That's 6 ayes and 0 nays. The motion passes.
We will, that has passed, correct? Yes. Yes, okay. Could we take just a short little break before? Yeah. Yeah, 5 minutes. Could everybody find their seat, please? Just a little explanation for the break. We've learned that Trustee Dotson's grandmother was just taken to the hospital. So what we're going to do is we've got a couple more items to attend to before the attorney interviews. But then after the attorney interviews, I'm going to recess the meeting. Well, we're going to do the rest of the meeting, but as far as the hiring of an attorney, I'm going to recess that until a week from today. If the board, we need to find out if the board members can make it. But I would like Kenyatta to be there for her vote, so that's why we're going to move it around a little bit. Okay? Okay. We did Larry, right? The amended budget. Now we have 1.21, the nursing lounge purchase award. Yep. Sorry for the mix-up, Rod.
Chair. Shonda, board members. Do we have a slide for that, Jordan? I don't think so. No? Okay. Purchasing went out for a contractor for the nursing lounge upgrade. Came back with about 5 or 6 different contractors. Of those, we picked the top 2. Their prices were almost identical. To differentiate them, we were looking for some value-added components. The contractor that we chose had scheduling software with real-time sharing. We felt that set them apart. It's something that everyone at the college can look at simultaneously instead of the constant questions, where are we at, how much longer until this is done. It's also something that facilities has looked into and would love to have in-house. This would give us a great opportunity for that. Because of that, we have chosen Sorensen, I think is how they pronounce their name, out of Bay City as the contractor. It's also important to note that this is a grant-funded event secured by an R as well. So this is not funds from the college, it's from the grant. I'll take any questions if there are any.
At the Finance Committee meeting, you indicated, Larry, that there was a further discount on the 614, 400, or does that reflect the discount?
Yeah, so when we went out to, it's Serenus Johnson Construction in Bay City, we asked them, we did want to use them because of the reasons that Rod said, so we did go to them for a best and final, and they lowered, I think, $5,700 to the 614. Yes, that's correct.
Move approval as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed.
I want to thank the if I could, I want to thank the administration and the staff, because going over these in the finance meeting allowed us to spend more detailed time on it. And if there was anything that we felt we needed to bring to the board's attention, that was the opportunity for us. So I think it's a good example of how the system can and should work.
Okay, moving right along to 1.22, selection of board appointees to the Committee on Balinger, interim persons lecture. that we have to come up with a couple, we have 2 appointees, correct? All right, does anybody have any ideas who they would like to see on that board? Okay. We have 2 that we're appointing, and there's a total of,
There's a total of 9 appointees. 3 of them will be appointed by Mr. Balinger, and 2 by the board, 2 from the faculty, and 2 appointed by the Office of the President.
What kind of time commitment is the committee?
pardon me?
What are we looking at? If you asked if anyone was interested.
Oh, to be on the board?
If you're going to be on the board.
I'm not aware of that.
Since this will be a newly formed committee, I think some of those details will need to be determined by the committee and whomever the committee elects as its chair. I would anticipate probably monthly meetings, and that's just going from general committee practice, but that will be determined by the new committee and its chairperson.
Yes.
If the opportunity's there, I'd be interested in serving on that committee.
Okay.
As would I.
As you also?
Yeah. You're looking for 2 board members, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it's 2. It's 2.
Well, no, it's 2 people appointed to that committee.
Nominated and appointed.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily have to be a board member.
Jordan will read the policy that was approved.
Yep, so as you guys may recall, back when you approved it on November 7th, this is Board Policy 1425, Committee on Balinger Eminent Person Lecture Series, and it reads as follows. This committee's role will be to make selection of the individual or individuals who shall be the keynote speaker at the annual Balinger Eminent Persons Lecture Series. The committee will consist of 9 persons. They shall be appointed as follows. The Board of Trustees of the college will appoint 2 persons by majority vote of the board. In the event a majority vote cannot be obtained, the chairperson shall appoint the members. The college president, or in the event of a vacancy, the interim president shall appoint 2 persons. The college faculty, in a process determined by them, shall appoint 2 persons. The Balinger family, as represented by William S. Balinger III, the grandson of MCC's benefactor, and his daughter Josephine W. Balinger of Traverse City, the only adult members of the family residing in Michigan, or any close family members they designate, shall appoint 3 persons. Any selection is contingent on the appropriate funding available for individual or individuals selected. This committee will have no role in deciding the funding for the Balinger Eminent Persons Series or Lecture Series.
Mr. Chair, I would appoint Art Reyes. Would like to appoint Art Reyes.
I thought he already threw his hat in the ring.
We have to vote on it, I thought. We have to vote on it.
Yeah, we need to vote on him.
Yeah. Thank you, and yeah, I am interested. But I'm just wondering too, this would give us an opportunity to maybe name someone from the public that the board can agree on, so that it doesn't have to be board members. I thought it was that it had to be board members that we were asking, but it's been clarified. Yeah, I'd like to see public input, or, members of the public that the board could agree to.
Yeah,
Well, I understand that. I myself would like it to be 2 board members, but that's just my way of thinking. So, John?
My only, I went down the same path that Trustee Reyes did, where I thought that the appointees had to be board members. The real question in my mind is, how do we get the information of the availability of this appointment out to the public? Do we just simply post it on our website and see for the public to see, or do we do anything beyond that?
Yeah. That'd be a good idea.
Mr. Chair, is there a way we can table this until the next meeting? I'll make a motion to postpone this until the next meeting,
Second.
until we find more information.
Well, we have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think that does a couple things. It allows us to be able to further clarify in our minds what it is that we're being asked for, what's being asked of us as potential board members, and then also to glean interest by members of the public.
Yeah. Just for clarification, if I could, this is a committee that already exists, is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's a brand-new committee.
And this is one that we created?
Correct.
Okay.
At Mr. Balinger's request.
No, okay. So then there's also something we have to look at, and that's in terms of, since we are the agency that created this committee, then we need to be sure that the other components that are going to nominate people are aware that they need to do that as well.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Balinger is also aware, and my office is aware. I do have a suggestion, perhaps, if she's willing, Lynetta Coney might be willing to talk a little bit about the time commitments required for such a committee from her experience with the Applewood committees, as well as, I believe, the former Balinger Trust Lecture Series committee as well. Thank you, Lynetta.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's okay. I've worked with the Balinger Committee for years now. Really, this is almost a year's planning to make sure that you have what we've done in the past, 1 or 2 lecturers. And so there's everything from properly vetting the selection of the speaker to the marketing, all the promotion. From my vantage point is always looking at sponsors when you have a reception to get additional dollars to augment what you're doing. But yeah, we would meet quite frequently, and I would say if there was a hiatus, it might have been July, August, maybe only one time in the summer. But for the most part, it's planning for the upcoming fiscal year, and then there's also planning to come right behind that. So I would say that the real intense portion of this whole effort is making sure that you're negotiating the speaker and that you're doing all the due diligence to do all of the logistical arrangements. And so from that standpoint, there's going to be a need for someone to really do some staff work. When you appoint someone, someone's going to have to do the staff work. So it's a labor of love, but it is time intensive.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have a motion second. Any more discussion? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
when is the results for our election or our appointees needed to be done by?
Well, there is no deadline. Yeah,
No
there is no
deadline?
deadline. No. Okay. Okay. All in favor of tabling this to the next meeting? Say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, the attorneys, the interviews. I believe each attorney firm has a half an hour, is that correct? Is that what we decided? Has a half an hour. I would like, questions would be nice for them. and as many as you want. Mind you, we only have a half an hour, though, for each firm. So, Jordan, can you get somebody to get the first?
I believe we have the first representative from Cummings, McClory, Davis, and Acho here. And just for you gentlemen, if you push the right button, that'll turn on the microphone. And then
There you go.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yep. Well, welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ethan Vincent from Cummings, McClory, Davis, and Atcho.
And I'm Sean Fitzgerald. I'm really the principal applicant here. As you saw in our presentation, I would be serving as the college's principal attorney. I have an extensive background in higher education, having served in-house at Wayne State University and as vice president and general counsel for Bowling Green State University in Ohio. So between those two institutions, I have almost 23 years of higher education experience. I think I've dealt with just about every issue in higher ed until the next one, because once you've seen one college or university, you've seen one college or university. So our presentation, we think, speaks for ourselves, and we'd like to spend our time this evening answering your questions. Or we can tell you a talk, and we're lawyers, and we're good at that too. So what's your preference?
I'd like to hear a little bit from you before we ask some questions.
Sure. Well, let me tell you about how I approach the role of general counsel. The general counsel for a college or university really doesn't have any subject matter ownership. Very few issues within the school. All of those are generally, they belong to the board, to the president, and to the executive officers. And the principal responsibility and duty of a general counsel, if they're doing the job right, is to help all of those other people in the college be more successful in their jobs. One of the principal responsibilities of an effective general counsel is risk management and risk reduction and preservation of assets. So it's a cliche, but the best way to win a lawsuit is to avoid one. And that's where engaging with general counsel early in an issue, most issues tend to involve labor and employment, gives a greater opportunity to manage risk and reduce financial exposure. And so managing risk, and risk is certainly financial, but it's also reputational. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the things we've heard here tonight. And there are certainly challenges at Mott Community College. But I think those are challenges that when you work past them, they'll become opportunities for you. And we certainly welcome an opportunity to be part of that. And we think we can make a contribution to the future and growth of Mott Community College. As we've been doing our due diligence here, we've got a couple of binders here. There's a lot to be excited about here. I was very impressed by the financial presentation. It looks like you're financially healthy. It looks like your enrollment is trending positively. Of course, enrollment drives tuition, and tuition drives your revenue, and that gives you options and choices and things that you can do to fulfill the school's mission. And I'll share with you another observation. I've worked extensively at Wayne State and Bowling Green. I served on a city commission. And part of our responsibilities as municipal attorneys, that's our firm's bread and butter practice. We represent all kinds of governmental agencies, cities, counties, townships, road commissions. I don't think I've ever seen such engagement in a governing board from the public. And I think that speaks very well of the support this institution has in the community, and be an exciting opportunity.
Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm principally a trial attorney, but I engage in EEOC matters, Michigan Civil Rights, NLRB, Michigan Employment Relations Commission. I have done labor negotiations, arbitration hearings, unfair labor practice hearings, and for the last 7 years, I was a city attorney in Warren. So that kept me pretty busy. So I've done the gamut of just about all in terms of administrative and litigation aspects. I have represented other community colleges as well.
You know, one of the things our firm does is we represent public corporations, and that's what Mott Community College is. It's a public corporation, as are cities and townships. And, oh, I'm sorry. But as an institution of higher education, you're a public corporation with some very unique issues. Let me give you an example of something that all employers in Michigan are going to be dealing with, including public corporations, including Mott, is a very recently passed law finalized last Friday about earned sick time. And that's something all employers are going to have to digest and take into account in their budgets. One of the things that jumped out at me as a higher education lawyer is that there is no carve-out for part-time employees in this law. And you have a lot of part-time employees, and you're going to, all higher education, when I say you, obviously I mean all higher education, is you're going to start paying sick time to student employees. And that's going to have some very potential budget ramifications for you. During the presentation on the budget, I noticed that you had a special line about increases in vacation and sick time costs. And I had a brief opportunity to speak with your finance director, and those don't take into account the impact that this law is going to have. So on the one hand, you have a very operational issue that you're going to have to operationalize. Your HR department is going to have to deal with this. Your IT department is going to have to deal with this. Whatever personnel software package you use, I'm used to two systems called PeopleSoft, and are going to have to be modified to provide for the 1 in 30 ratio. Every 30 hours an employee works, they'll earn 1 hour of sick time. And so on the one hand, you've got an operational issue, and then on the other hand, within the last month, 10 days, there is a very broad national policy issue that colleges and universities are going to need to get their arms around. I notice it's, I think it's one of your agenda items for the interim president's presentation, and that's the executive order on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Building on that, the Department of Education issued a Dear Colleague letter on the 14th that is pretty prescriptive in terms of what colleges and universities are going to have to do in order to be compliant with the Department of Education's directives related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and understanding those and providing for them and making sure that you can continue to pursue the values of the institution in compliance with the law is going to be a big challenge. And that's something I think college and university attorneys are going to be very occupied with in the near term.
Question, John?
I have several questions. First, we're looking for a board attorney, and my understanding, I'm certainly not an attorney, but my understanding is there are two entities at Mott that have legal standing. One is the college, the other is the board. The college has general counsel, so what's the relationship that you see between board counsel and the general counsel?
Well, my first response to that is I need to get educated, because the legal entity is usually the board. And so that you have a distinction between college attorney and board counsel is something I would need to get a better understanding of. When I looked at your RFP, one of the things I noticed in it that I really would compliment you about is its provision for constraining who at the university can engage with university counsel. At some of my prior institutions, it was pretty broad. Just about anybody could pick up the phone and call university counsel. At Wayne State, we had 6 attorneys. At Bowling Green, I had 2. And that was just the culture at those institutions, was that fairly low in the organization, people felt they could call up the attorney. That's not a good arrangement. And so in your RFP, you constrain engagement with the university counsel, I think of it as university counsel, board counsel, to the chairman of the board and your president. And that is a model I would encourage, because the more people that can engage with the university attorney, well, you know, there's an old joke. I asked 5 attorneys a question and I got 7 different answers. So the more you can constrain that access to the university attorney, the more the attorney can speak with a single voice and understand the policy implications of the advice request. Let me tell you a war story. One day at Wayne State, I got a call from a mid-level manager, and they wanted to know if the university had a nepotism policy. And looked it up, and there was no nepotism policy. There was certainly conflict of interest policies, but per se, no nepotism policy, so that was the answer I gave. Next day, I got a call from that individual's boss wondering why I told that person he could hire his son. Well, that wasn't the question I was asked, and that wasn't the advice that I gave. And the lesson that I took from that is that not only is it important to know what legal advice you're being asked to give, but also understanding why you're being asked to give it. And so limiting the number of people that can engage with the university attorney reduces the risk for miscommunications like that. As it turned out in that instance, that individual had been told, you can't hire your son. And so what he was doing was shopping his, around to kind of unwittingly engage me in something he wanted to do. So, but I would want to get a better understanding of this distinction between a college attorney and a board attorney, because under the rules of professional conduct that govern our activities as an attorney for an institution represents the institution and no individual actor within the institution. So I'm struggling to see where there could be a college attorney and a board attorney, because the board really is the college.
Okay. Second question is, have you or your colleague represented any member of the board legally in any manner in the last 3 years?
This board?
This board.
No.
Then my third question is, on the cost proposal, you give a rate of $2.25 an hour. Is that would be the rate regardless of who's representing us?
Yes, either Mr. Vincent or I would charge
either one of you two.
$2.25, or if we have to engage other attorneys in the firm with specialized expertise in a particular matter, that's the rate we would charge.
Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for you. Because we've had problems with conflict of interest and ethics, I just want to make sure that there are no conflicts between trustees, the college, or the law firm. So that brings me to my question. Do you have any conflicts of interest with the 3 that I just mentioned?
We don't. Certainly, before we would finalize a representation, we would run a formal conflicts check, but we did that as we were preparing our RFP, and we identified no conflicts.
Thank you.
One time, many years ago, our office had an office in Bay City that we used to service this area. but that's probably 20 years ago since then. We represent a number of governmental agencies through the risk management pool, but again, that would not create a conflict with the college. You know, one area where we would be sensitive to conflicts would be if, for example, the college were to be sued, depending on the circumstances of the representation, you know, we might disqualify ourselves from taking a litigation matter and would have the MCCRMA assign that to another matter, to another law firm, or not. It really depends on the particular circumstances of the case.
Candace, do you have any questions? Art?
I wanted to touch a little bit more on the DEI issue, because that is going to be something that this board is going to have to deal with. Currently, the board has as its #1 priority DEI. So we're going to have to look at every one of the policies that we have. We're going to have to determine how we maintain the work that is being done in the spirit of including everyone in our multicultural community. And without putting ourselves or grants in danger by using keywords that are going to harm us. What kind of pre-work are you guys looking at, you know, without giving us any free legal advice? I'm not asking for, well, unless you want to give that, but
you know, Trustee Reyes, at this point, I'm not sure I could give you free legal advice, because I think the bar is struggling with these issues as you are going to struggle with them, and that is how to strike a balance between the institutional value that has long been reflected in diversity, equity, and inclusion with some pretty specific directives coming out of the Department of Education, where the Department of Education has some enforcement tools that can be painful. And so striking that balance between the institutional values and regulatory compliance is going to be a challenge. You know, I will share with you, there is an excellent organization called the National Association of College and University Attorneys that if we were selected to be your counsel, we would certainly ask that you sponsor our membership into NACUA, because that's like having 3,000 lawyers, and all of them are dealing with these issues right now and trying to come up with the right answer. You know, one of the things in the Department of Education's Dear Colleague letter that is concerning is a very specific statement that they are going to be looking for efforts at pretext to get around the official elimination of DEI programs. And so I don't think relabeling DEI as something else is going to be, in the end, a winning strategy. But it really turns on the Department of Education and how aggressive they are. You know, one of the things, you know, to think about is, you know, in the whole hierarchy or continuum of higher education, is Mott Community College likely to be a high priority for the Department of Education? You know, that's some risk balancing, you know, risk weighing that you'll have to take.
Then also you have to consider there may be attempts to dismantle the Department of Education. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's an unsettled time. You know, I will share with you, historically, these Dear Colleague letters from the Department of Education, they technically do not carry the force of law, but coming from the Department of Education, which has all of these enforcement tools, the approach in higher education has been to treat those Dear Colleague letters with very, very high seriousness. Probably the most recent example is in the area of Title IX and dealing with student-on-student sexual harassment. And there were Dear Colleague letters during the Obama administration and then the first Trump administration that really swung 180 degrees in terms of an institution's, how they had to structure their disciplinary systems to dealing with those issues. Sorry, using my lawyer voice here. And, you know, the consensus among higher education attorneys was that you follow the Dear Colleague letter and you disregard it at your peril, even if the Dear Colleague letter is swinging 180 degrees from administration to administration. So it's nothing simple about it. If I might share just some other observations from our due diligence. We looked at your website in great detail, and there were some things that jumped out at me that I think, you know, are very complimentary to your institution. In particular, your campus safety report impressed me in terms of its level of detail, crime reporting, the mechanisms that you have in place for campus safety and warnings. That's an important piece of compliance for the Department of Education as it relates to the Clery Act, is timely warnings. And that's something that I, had, in a couple of instances, unfortunate experience of working with firsthand at both institutions where we had incidents of violence that required timely warnings and campus lockdowns. And from what I could tell from your reports, it's a compliment to your public safety department. They seem to be very well on top of that. Let's see, going through, we interviewed in the fall, so last time up, so I have the questions from them. So let me go through some of the questions that you asked then. What experience do we have in handling Title IX complaints? Extensive experience. I did that extensively at both Wayne State and Bowling Green. We recently did one for a Metropolitan Detroit Community College, which was, Mr. Vincent is handling that. I did an internal investigation for another community college in Metro Detroit for a violation of the internal non-discrimination policy that was very complex and very sensitive because there were cross allegations of race and sex discrimination. And that matter involved interviewing some 15 employees, reviewing hundreds of documents. It was very intensive. So that's something I think we can tell you with great confidence, that we have good experience in conducting internal investigations as well as Title IX investigations. Let's see, a question from then. Explain the role of the board attorney as we understand it. The role of the attorney is to advise the board. One of the important things I've taken from my 23 years in higher education is that campus council, university attorney, decides next to nothing. Decisions are made by the board, they're made by the executive officers. The attorney's doing his or her job well. They're making sure that those decisions are made with the best legal advice and with a full understanding of risk and opportunities. I call it a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, so that as your administrators make decisions, they know they're making them from a range of options with an understanding of the attendant risk to each option. So again, one of the things I have found in my experience is that there's a temptation on the part of some managers, usually at mid to lower levels, to convert every issue into a legal issue and throw it to the attorney for decision. And that tends to absolve them of responsibility in doing their own work. And so you've solved that by limiting who can talk to the attorney. One of the downsides of allowing that to occur is it deprives upper level management of the opportunity to evaluate their employees. If the attorney's making all the decisions, then low, mid-level managers are not making those decisions, and so you're not getting a chance to judge them in their performance. Internal investigations, we could certainly handle that. one of the things that's critical in conducting an internal investigation is ensuring that college employees understand the role of the attorney in conducting the internal investigation, and that is that the attorney is not their lawyer. And so they have to understand that there is no attorney-client privilege that attaches in the course of doing an internal investigation. Really, the privilege runs between the attorney and the board as a whole. That's a function of our rules of professional conduct, and it's really a best practice. And the privilege doesn't run between the attorney and any individual member of the board. The privilege belongs to the board as a whole. And once you get outside the board and the president, usually there's no attorney-client privilege, and it's incumbent upon the attorney to make sure that the individuals being interviewed understand that. I'm getting carried away. I haven't left time for any of your questions.
There's
I
4
like talking
minutes.
about
Yeah.
higher education law.
4 minutes and 45 seconds left.
Wait a minute, Jordan. I had some questions, but you spoke right through my question time. But John asked the same questions I did. I was going to, so you're all good.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's something we need to think about. Right now, we've set it up that it would run portal to portal. Once we have more experience with you and we understand what your needs are and your consumption of legal services, we can revisit that.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, we just don't have enough information to really make an informed proposal of an alternative fee arrangement.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you
Thank you,
talking to
gentlemen.
us and giving us the opportunity to tell you about our firm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Welcome. Before we get started with you, I would entertain a motion to let the executive committee go home, and we'll take this up next Monday, because next Monday will be a short meeting to vote on the attorneys. How's that? Okay. It's up to you guys. It's, you, well, I seen, Dale, you weren't fidgeting, but Larry was fidgeting. Yes, if that's all right with you guys. Well, all right. Okay. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
And which firm are you?
Dickinson Wright.
Alrighty. Art, would you like them to start out by saying a little bit about themselves? If you would, please.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Jared Christensen. It's very nice to be here with you folks this evening. I am based out of our Detroit office, so downtown. I've been practicing law for about 7 years now. So I started at Dickinson when I was a summer associate, worked there over the summer, immediately was sort of brought into the world of education law, and before I knew what I was saying yes to, kind of got involved with a lot of different education law assignments. So that's sort of how I found my way down this path. I've continued to grow sort of my practice and my expertise to cater to education clients. So certainly consider myself, experienced, though I'm still young in the world of lawyers. But happy to be here this evening, and certainly happy to answer any other questions that you folks might have as well.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Amy Gibbs from Dickinson Wright. I've been with Dickinson Wright for 18 years, started off in the Detroit office, and I'm now working out of the Ann Arbor office, and have done education law my entire practice. I would say about 95% of my practice is specifically education law, helping public boards with governance issues, helping Board of Trustees with anything that comes up. As I'm sure you all know, acting as general counsel to institutions of higher education, you see it all. You guys see it all as board members, and certainly as attorneys, we've been able to help and assist boards kind of navigating through the various issues that come up. So yeah, I've worked with Jared since he started, and we're happy to be here, so thank you. And happy to answer any questions too.
I guess I can start.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that okay? Because we've had problems with conflict of interest and ethics, I just want to make sure that there are no conflicts between any of the trustees, our college, or the law firm. So my question would be, do you have any conflict of interest?
None that we know of, obviously, off the top of our heads, but we've also done the conflict check internally, and there's no issue on our end as far as that goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, our law firm does a check every time we come out to talk with various boards, and so they did run everybody's name and the college's name through this, and we did not have any conflicts. So,
John, go
Just
ahead.
a little bit of follow-up on that question. So then with that internal check, that would mean that nobody at your firm has represented any of the board members here within the past 3 years? Is that a yes?
that
No,
is,
maybe?
I mean, we submit it and they do the conflict check. So yes, that's my understanding, is that it even extends beyond 3 years, actually. I mean, we were notified if somebody was represented by Dickinson, right? But if there's any potential conflict, it would be cleared.
Okay. Second question is this is a hiring for a board attorney, and we already have general counsel, legal counsel for the college. What do you see as the relationship between board attorney and college legal counsel?
Sure, so I can talk to that, and then Jared, feel free to step in. So we work with various colleges who have their own internal, college counsel, and so we often work with them, but we represent the board, and so that would be our role if we were, to get this bid. So we would be working with you all as the board, and so the board has, a lot of different legal issues that arise that we would be acting or, consulting with, researching, providing answers to you all as board members. And so we understand that is kind of our client-attorney relationship is with the board. Having said that, we also work closely, with general counsel for colleges because there's a lot of overlap in issues that the college specifically is dealing with and that the board is dealing with. So it's kind of a partnership, but really we are your attorney.
I was going to say that perfectly summarizes everything. I think really, ideally, it is a partnership, but at the end of the day, the board is the client, so that's who we would look to as the client in that situation.
And so if we did select your firm to represent us, who at your firm would be our representative?
We would be. Yeah. So
the two of you together?
Yeah, I mean, typically it comes to me first. I work very closely with Jared, and so he would be somebody that you could also reach out to independently of me. But it would be the two of us. And then, we have the privilege of working with a lot of attorneys in our Michigan offices, and so we would be the ones, if you came to us with, for example, a bond question or, a real estate question or something along those lines, we would then be your contact. We would pull in who we need to pull in, but we have found, over time that it's the most streamlined, and we can kind of ensure that we're pulling in the correct people to be that contact person.
And is your billing portal to portal?
I'm sorry, could you?
Is your billing portal to portal? In other words, you're located in, in Detroit, and we have a meeting here.
Yes, I see what, no, so we don't bill for travel time. We also provide, and I know you guys have our billing information, but what is unique about Dickinson Wright is that we look for kind of a longer-term relationship with our clients, and so we feel that we provide certain services that aren't billed, such as, to your point, we wouldn't bill for travel time if we're here for a meeting. And also, we also provide, various in-services, 3 in-services for the board. It can be on governance, FOIA, Open Meetings Act, anything that you feel as a board would be helpful. And we do that without charging. So we provide that on an annual basis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Art?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you a little bit about what's facing community college, well, actually colleges across the country with the Dear Colleague letter that the Department of Education just put out regarding DEI. DEI is something that is integral, rather, to the operations of our board. So we're going to find ourselves in a position where we may potentially cause harm, with federal grants and things of that nature that are going on. So I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on the direction that colleges are going, that lawyers are starting to go, and what pre-work you may have done regarding DEI.
I can take that initially, and then feel free to jump in. So the Dear Colleague letter that came out on February 14th, we were somewhat anticipating that. And so what we've done in connection with our support of community colleges and universities is kind of remind everybody that the Dear Colleague letter that does not have the full impact. Thank you. Does not have the full impact of a law. And so it is a good indicator of what this administration is going to be looking at. But certainly there are already challenges. There's a lot of things that are evolving and kind of happening on a day-to-day basis. And so what we've been kind of doing is monitoring everything, providing, general viewpoints and kind of tips. And then also kind of trying to say, there's a lot changing. Mm-hmm. And so we don't necessarily implement anything right away, and kind of just working with everybody to, say, what do you want the program to ultimately look like? And then saying, here are some of the risks if you do this, and here's how you can best minimize those and still keep true to your mission and your ideals. And we've actually had a lot of experience with the Dear Colleague letter, and then also, various other changes that have come up. I just want to say, I do a lot with Title IX, and so that has also been one aspect that has had a lot of changes in the last month.
Could you elaborate a little bit more after you get an opportunity on Title IX? Because that was going to be my next question.
Oh, sure.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I do a lot of Title IX work, and I do a lot of Title IX trainings, and that's obviously one of the trainings I would offer free of charge because I do that so frequently. But so, as I said, I've been practicing for 18 years, so I've seen the kind of pendulum swing back and forth with the Title IX. Started out with the Dear Colleague letters, and then, the first time this administration was in office, they passed the new regulations, and so I did a lot of training, making sure that all of my clients understood those regulations, what they meant, and how that had changed from the prior Title IX. And then, again, did the next training under Biden's Title IX regulations, and then, Jared and I actually have a client, we got On February 9th, when the federal court decision kind of overthrew all of the Title IX Biden administration regulations, we had 5 new Title IX cases that day. And so it was kind of a scramble, like everybody's scrambling with a lot these days, but it was a scramble to say, what does that mean? Which regs are we under? What are we following? And so we're we're very comfortable and familiar with all of that. And we also do push in to actually do Title IX regulations, or I'm sorry, Title IX investigations and determinations with some of our clients in K-12 and also in higher education. And so, you know, that's definitely something that we're comfortable with and have a lot of experience in.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think when you go through time periods like this where there is so much change in the law as it relates to education and everything, you sort of have to stay vigilant and keep your clients apprised, and then also monitor and sort of see how things unfold in practice just to make sure you're giving the best advice. But it helps to sort of have that experience like Amy's describing of knowing where to look as things start to shift back and forth, because when you have that background knowledge and information, it makes it a little bit easier as things are murky or often sort of undecided in the meantime to come up with at least advice or best practices while those things are implemented. So, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? Once again, John asked questions I was going to. So, well, it's the same 2 questions. So, Candace, you don't have any? Okay. Well, that was quick. Do you have anything you want to add?
Nothing too much further, just that, you know, we'd hope that you'd consider us. We think we're fully equipped to help you out in any of the issues that you may encounter. And I think, you know, Amy and I both have a wealth of experience in this area, so certainly happy to help you folks out. And we appreciate the opportunity to come down and talk with you.
All right, one thing, you don't do port to port? John, did you ask that? They do not do port to port, okay.
Yeah, no, it would just be our time spent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not the travel time.
Yeah.
And just to close, I mean, definitely thank you for the opportunity for coming here. Thank you for your service to the college. And we know that boards, my father served on a school board, and it was a different time. And so I just want to thank you for your service, because I know you guys don't always get the thank yous. And to say that when we work with our clients, that our boards of trustees members, I will say we are very responsive, and we know that what you guys do and different things that you face from time to time are very urgent and affect a lot of people. And so we really kind of pride ourselves on making sure that we're available to our clients in the education space, other clients too, but you guys seem to have a lot of like very urgent issues that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So when those arise, you know, we definitely make ourselves available and make sure that we're, you know, on it as quickly as possible.
Well, most of the questions would be 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So,
Call Jared.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So I take the night owl shift or the graveyard shift, so to speak, and then Amy picks it up the next morning.
Well,
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Well, okay.
Yes, exactly. That's where the background knowledge comes in handy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
well, thank you both for
Yeah.
coming, and we'll let you know.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot us an email.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, thank you,
Appreciate the
everybody.
opportunity. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Good evening. I brought some friends, so we're going to grab another.
Mind if we pull up a couple other chairs? Oh, they're connected.
I was not expecting that.
I got a chair from over here.
We got it.
Okay, we got it.
Yeah, we got it. They were tangled up on the legs.
Well, welcome.
Hi there.
I would hope, is this the type of response we'll get when we have a question?
That we tangle the
We'll have
legs.
4 of you.
Well, so 4 is probably not economically efficient, but we'll get the right person there.
Could you start off by telling us just a little bit about the firm?
Sure. So I'm Adam Blaylock, and I want to briefly introduce my colleagues, and part of that is because I'm quite blessed to be here and to have these folks with me. I didn't know any of them 18 months ago, but my name's Adam Blaylock. I'm an attorney in our education group. I've got Josh Ledford, who's a Genesee County local, lives about 10 minutes from here, who's in part of our labor and employment group. I've got Lee Schultz, who's the head of our labor and employment group. She's the practice group chair. And then I've got Lee Ryder-Kofend, who's part of our immigration group. And the reason that we wanted to bring a team here is to show you a little bit about the commitment that Miller Johnson has to supporting community colleges like Mott, as well as to kind of show a little bit of our different skill set. So Miller Johnson it's Michigan's law firm. That's the goal, that's our mission, that's what we want to be. 5 years ago, Miller Johnson didn't have a Detroit office, and now we've got almost 50 attorneys that call Detroit home, and we're expanding our reach across southeastern Michigan and across Michigan as a whole. So as part of the education group, we represent school districts all across the state, and we're expanding into community colleges. And then I point to Lee because Lee and I have been supporting a number of community colleges in different matters over the past 18 months when I've been part of the Miller Johnson team. So that's the brief introduction of the team and a little bit about Miller Johnson, and we're really excited to be here tonight.
Okay. John, you want to start out with some questions?
Well, we only got one person. Yeah, unfortunately. We're looking for a representative for the board, and the college already has a general legal counsel. So what do you see as being the representation between board legal counsel and the college legal counsel?
So colleges are interesting institutions, and I say that because they are these entities that have a singular administrative focus in a president, and at the same time, the issues that the president deals with are often different than the issues that the board deals with. And one of the amazing pieces of doing both sides of that coin is being able to be part of flowing that information from one side to the other. But the reality is that there are occasions when those interests diverge. And that right there is where I think the benefit of having a board-specific counsel exists. That being said, if we've got a general counsel and a board counsel, I think that's something that's got to be also very collaborative, correct? Because ultimately, the most important thing for a public institution is that it's to be firing on all cylinders and to be collaborating and working together. So while those focuses might be a little different in terms of the interests of the underlying institution versus the board, ultimately the one goal that has to be fundamental to everyone has to be the institution. And for an institution of higher learning, that means the students. One of my most foundational components as an education attorney, and I say this over and over and over again to clients, is this: if we take care of our kids, most of our problems get taken care of. And so I want that to always be a singular focus in everything that I do, is taking care of our students. And if we ask ourselves that particular question when we're making every decision, that helps. It helps a lot.
Just as a matter of pursuing being sure there's no conflict of interest, I want to be sure that your group has not represented any member of the board in any capacity in the last 3 years.
The only thing that, not on an individual basis, but I do represent the city of Burton. So I know one of your members.
I happen to know him just through Burton City Council. He represents the city of Burton. He and I have not had contact, though, individually or anything like that.
I would say as a matter of practice at our firm, we don't generally represent individuals. We represent employers and businesses of various shapes and sizes and sectors. So I don't personally know any of you yet, but I'm certain that we could run a conflict check just to be sure we have no ties to anyone. But I don't think that that has come up or is likely to be an issue for us at all.
If we did select your firm, who would be the principal legal counsel? Who would be point of contact?
That's me.
That's you.
That's
Okay.
me.
Adam's based in our Detroit office, so very close. And Adam comes from the world of education, has always been in the world of education. You can tell a little bit about your background if you want. So I think Adam is an awesome fit to be your primary point of contact. But we work collaboratively together. The way we like to run things typically is they go through one person so that you can have a person that you feel like is the person you can call about anything. And then they can find the right person to help, whatever that subspecialty might be. And then as you develop relationships with people, you can reach out to them individually as well.
Okay. And is your billing process portal to portal? In other words, you're wherever you are, you're located where?
Detroit, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo.
Okay, you're in
Yep.
Detroit. We have a meeting here. When does the clock start running on for the bill?
That
When
is
you
all.
leave the office or when you show up here?
Yeah, that is all subject to discussion and you know, preference and whatever works mutually for the parties. It's different, I would say, for different clients.
And I'd say
Yep.
candidly, we have different arrangements with different
Yep,
clients.
I agree with
Okay.
that. Yep.
Good to hear. Always open to talk about it.
Yeah, we're always open to talk about anything that might be on your mind.
Herb, go ahead.
Just to bounce off what John said, he basically stole my question. I'm kidding. It was basically the same thing. Since we've had problems with conflict of interest and ethics, I just want to make sure that there are no conflict of interest between trustees, the college, or the law firm. So that would be my question, so you somewhat answer that. And my next question is, to say a trustee called you and asked you to do some work behind the scenes, how would you handle that?
I'm a little uncomfortable because I don't know what behind the scenes means. So I think the best way for me to kind of explain how the typical process is for me is that typically I've got a point of contact, whether that's the board president or a superintendent or a president of the university, someone that is the primary person that you work through to facilitate all of the work that comes through the organization. Now, occasionally, they may delegate that authority. That happens. I've got clients that are large enough that I work with a number of their administrative team because they've got different skill sets and different needs. But anyone that's saying that they want to do something behind the scenes is ultimately, truthfully, I got a bill for my time.
Right.
So someone's going to find out about it at some point. So if that were to go on, I'd fall back on the protocol, right? So if the protocol is that things should be facilitated through the board president and someone has emailed me and not CC'd them, my response would be, hi, I'm happy to look at that, and then CC the appropriate person where there's that opportunity for correction if there's something that's out of line.
And just to add to that, I have been representing community colleges for 20 years, and I work frequently with boards. If I ever get a call from an individual board member that seems to be out of place, or if I'm being asked to do something that doesn't seem to align with the boards as a whole, I certainly would let them know that I am not able to do that. We're not able to help with anything that's an individual need of an individual board member. We represent the board as a whole, or the college as a whole, whichever role we're asked to serve. So no, we absolutely don't do work for anybody, any one person, and I always make that clear. We don't represent any individual. It's the entity, right? Yep.
Okay, I have a couple questions. I'd like to talk a little bit about DEI. Mott Community College, they're very upfront with our making DEI a priority, realizing now that that's going against the stated policy of the new administration, as well as the Dear Colleague letter that just came out from the Department of Education. It's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with because it's so pervasive in our policies and just everything that we do. What kind of pre-work have you done to prepare for the onslaught? Because that's obviously not going to be something that's unique to Mott Community College, or a community college for that matter. So what kind of pre-work have you done with that? And could you talk to us a little bit about DEI? And then from there, I want to touch on Title IX. So
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about DE&I? Please. Okay, so this is a subject that, of course, is very important to most of our clients, and something that as soon as those executive orders started coming down, we started talking as a group internally, having meetings as a group about how are we going to approach this. Our position has been the law has not changed. The executive orders may have been issued, but the law has not changed. Equal opportunity employment is the law, is what matters, it is what is important to us, to our clients. And while there may be questions about words such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a focus on those words from the current administration, it doesn't change the fact that we absolutely will uphold the values of being an equal opportunity employer and making sure that we have a diverse workforce as part of that. And that's of critical importance. None of that has to change. We may need to decide that we're going to adjust some of the wording of some policies because some words are buzzwords, but it doesn't change the underlying focus of what we do and what matters, which is making sure that you have an inclusive workforce. So it is still very important, and none of that has changed at all, even though there are questions and maybe certain views on what those words mean.
Right. Well, with us, it extends a little bit further than even our workforce, with our students and various,
course. Yeah,
various granting that happens, in particular Pell Grants and federal aid that we would be receiving, or that we are receiving and might be put in danger. But, we live in a multicultural community, and we serve a diverse student body and community. And so it's something that is very important to us. So.
And within our team, we have experts on all of the federal contractor and subcontractor rules, the OFCCP. We have designated experts who can help you analyze each and every federal grant, federal receipt, and decide what do we need to do, if any, to make sure that those aren't jeopardized. But that's the nice thing about our team, is we have a real depth in all of these areas and people who are true experts in each one of these niches that can help with things like that.
I don't think the folks at the table are the expert on the OFCP.
No, I'm not.
Okay, I have a quick question. Art, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask
I'm
if
sorry.
you
Go
would
ahead.
discuss Title IX a little bit with us.
Are we talking about the 2024 regs or the 2020 regs? So that's an issue that has obviously permeated higher education and the education space for every federal recipient across the country over the past really 6 months or so, ever since the 2024 regulations were enjoined. And so, as an example, Lee and I were conducting training for a community college this fall. We get through that process, and now, obviously 6 months later, we're saying, hey, we've got to readjust in order to meet the requirements of what the law is right now. So the reality of Title IX is that we're back to a very prescriptive process that's got a lot of procedural things that need to be taken care of. And the reality is that we've got to deal with that. Now, ultimately, what's important in all of that is that we maintain those core values as we go through that process as well. I have memories of conducting major Title IX investigations a decade ago when the first Title IX, or the first Dear Colleague letters were being written, and transparently making mistakes in those processes because we didn't understand what was going on. But the reality that we're at now is that we've got a lot more information. So where we are right now is we're back to the 2020 regulations. And so the first step is let's take our policy and let's make sure it still complies with the 2020 regulations. I'm confident most of the community colleges in the state have some kind of ongoing Title IX investigation that we've got to deal with. Okay, what rules are we applying today to this particular investigation? And the guidance that I've been giving clients is we need to look at where we are, we need to look at what has already taken place, and we need to evaluate the various risks associated with different courses of action. Because one of the things that's true is in an area like that where there is deep uncertainty about what we're doing and what the law is right now, there is no riskless path. And so our role is to help advise so that the ultimate decision makers can make and evaluate those risks and then say, okay, that's the path that we're going to take down. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone's way out there, I'm going to tell you that you're way out there. And I've said that transparently. I had a client a couple weeks ago who was like, you're not telling me good news. I'm like, my job isn't to tell you good news. My job is to tell you what the risk is so that you can make an informed decision about what's best for your organization. And that's where we stand on it.
I just have one question. When we talked with the other firms, they had talked about point of contact. The president or the chair of the board. I just want to know your feelings on what you think about point of contact and how it should be.
So as board counsel, my primary recommendation is that be the board president. Now, what I would also encourage is there be some other process involved as well. So oftentimes, and this is something you'll often see in a board operating procedure or some kind of manual that relates to how the board governs itself, is there's often a process about how does something get on the agenda, right? If the board president isn't going to authorize that for whatever reason. And so what I would suggest or encourage is that there be a process so that there isn't an opportunity for one individual to overtake the entire process. But it shouldn't necessarily be easy to overcome that process either, right? So what I would generally recommend is, yes, the board president for board counsel makes perfect sense, or the university president when you're talking about the university's general counsel makes perfect sense. But having the ability or the opportunity to facilitate that process if there's, say, a majority of the board that wants to engage that legal counsel. Now, obviously, with the board, you've got meetings that are happening on a regular basis and process that goes along with that. But that's something that I think is a major board governance issue, is figuring out how we're going to deal with the various processes, right? Because ultimately that's what a lot of board governance is. It's what's the process to do what we want to do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would any of the 32 of you want to add anything, or before we call this quits here?
I think just to say that we really appreciate the opportunity. We do a lot of community college work, and I have, like I said, represented community colleges for 20 years and enjoy it very much. So I understand how you operate, and I think that we're well positioned to be able to assist you with anything that you need. And I like hearing that you have separate college counsel. I think that's great. I think we can work collaboratively. Lee came from the university world. Two Lees here, which is strange, right? Two female Lees. But Lee came from the university world, so she understands higher education very well. She's worked at Western Michigan University for a long time. And I've been outside counsel for, like I said, community colleges for a long time. So we have an amazing team of lawyers that can help on any subject. We're readily available. We respond to emails and calls and texts pretty much 24/7. We're willing to drive to be wherever you need us. So we appreciate you inviting us to be here tonight. And if there's anything else you want to know about us individually or any of our team members, we're happy to answer.
All righty. Well, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You have a good evening.
You too.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. My name is Thomas McCarthy, and I had shoulder surgery 2 weeks ago, which is why I'm wearing this. But it went well, so we'll be ready.
Do you want to start out by telling us just a little bit about your firm?
Sure. Well, I'm with the Monahan Law Firm in Bloomfield Hills. We have 5 lawyers and support staff. The firm's been around since 1902. We are in Governor's Place at Woodward and Long Lake. I've been there since 1994. I'm the president of the firm. In terms of myself and my career, I am a graduate of Wayne State University Law School, currently a special assistant attorney general. I represent the Michigan Department of Transportation in land acquisition activities. My higher education experience, I was university counsel for Siena Heights University from 1996 to 2023, and I can get into the details about that experience. But I basically, although I was external counsel, I had a very close relationship with the senior vice president, and I handled all of the university's legal matters, advised the board of trustees, drafted all of the significant resolutions of the board of trustees, did 5 bond transactions as borrower's counsel for the university. So whatever challenges Mott Community College is faced or will be facing, I've dealt with probably something pretty similar to it over the past 25 years.
Okay, well, thank you. John, you have some questions?
Legal representation for the board.
Yes, sir.
The college already has general legal counsel.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you see the relationship between board counsel and the college counsel?
Good question. So at Siena Heights, I was counsel to both. I would say the administration and the board. Here, the board may have more independent oversight over the activities of the administration and the college. So our duty of loyalty would be to the Board of Trustees to make sure the board's following and meeting its fiduciary obligations and whatever independent oversight obligations it had to address on any particular issue that was properly considered by the board. At least the trustees were advised of it.
Okay, and walk me through an example, if you could.
It's a good question. So let's say there was an employment matter.
Okay.
Two employees of the college, supervisor, subordinate, and there was potential litigation, there were discussions of settlement, and the whole mess ended up in the lap of the Board of Trustees to evaluate. Well, the trustees' obligations might be a little bit different than the administration. So let's say, for example, no disrespect to the current president, but let's say, the administration was, pushing a settlement, severance pay, confidential settlement, something like that. Well, the board has to look at it through clear eyes, whether or not it's the best interest of the college and things of that nature. That would be an example that might come to mind as to a conflict.
Have you represented anybody on the Board of Trustees individually with any type of legal service or administrative support in, say, the past 3 years?
This board?
This board?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
And is your, I'm looking at the fee proposal that was attached to your response to the RFP.
Yes, sir.
Is that a portal-to-portal charge, or is that a charge once, say, like the meeting starts or something?
Well, that would be, I mean, typically our rate is door-to-door.
Okay.
And during business hours, but we have in the past, for non-business hour travel, we would provide a 50% discount of the time. And the reason why the rate during the workday is not really subject to discounting if you're traveling or talking on the phone or something like that, is that we have plenty of work. And when we're going to meet clients and things of that nature, it's all part of the legal services.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
Are you good, John, or?
I'm done. Or for an
To bounce off one of John's questions, because we've had problems with conflict of interest and ethics, I just want to make sure that there are no conflicts between trustees, the college, or the law firm.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about what we're all facing at this point with the executive orders that have been signed by President Trump and the Dear Colleague letter that's come out of the Department of Education with regards to DEI. DEI is a program that's very important to Mott Community College, and the principles of DEI are very important to Mott Community College. What we don't want to do is put our students at risk because we're, we get federal grants and any other programs that we might have. So I was wondering what kind of pre-work you're doing, or if you could just kind of discuss in general some of the things that are going on with that, and then segue from that into Title IX.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot of experience with the Department of Education in our prior work for Siena Heights University, and Title IX issues have come up. What's going on now in Washington, D.C. in the executive branch, I would say, is uncharted territory. I don't know if you saw the headlines today, but the United States voted with Russia in the United Nations resolution joining Korea and China and Belarus against the Western democracies. So we're going to have to try to make decisions and evaluate issues as they come about, because when I was a younger lawyer, when there used to be fax machines, I would get in the office and heavily litigated case, I would check the fax machine every morning for correspondence or filing or things of that nature. And it's that way now with the executive orders that are coming out. I think there's 70 pending lawsuits. There's probably more now. And much of what the president is doing through executive orders, in my judgment, is illegal. And I think the courts will start stepping up, because the Congress doesn't seem to be willing to challenge him on some of these issues. So I understand what you're saying in terms of the school's policies towards DEI, Title IX, participation in sports, and all of that. I mean, they're seeking to wipe out changes that have occurred in society over decades now that the citizens, by and large, accept. And we'll have to be very cognizant on how to protect the college in that regard.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
Your experience, and you're in here with Siena Heights University.
Yes, sir.
It says you services provided bond counseling, or bond financing, I'm sorry. What does that mean? Did you serve as bond counsel, or?
No, I didn't. Our bond counsel was Miller Canfield, and I served as borrower's counsel, so I would issue opinions that the university was authorized to enter into these bond transactions. And the way it worked was it was kind of a mezzanine financing program. The Lenawee County Economic Development Corporation would be the issuer of the bonds, and Siena Heights would agree to repay the bonds, and they were done for a number of infrastructure improvements at the university, football field, university center, baseball complex.
Public-private partnership deal.
Yes, sir. Yep, and they were, so there was tax-exempt bond financing, and Miller Canfield did an outstanding job, and First American Bank out of Illinois was the bank guarantor on some of it. That was also the primary financial relationship with the university.
Any other questions, John?
No.
No? Art, Wendy, Candace? Okay. No, I have no questions. John always asks my questions. So, do you have anything you'd like to add, or?
Well, I would like to add one thing. I noted in my preparation of the materials in the request for proposal, there was an indemnification clause for the legal services that I don't think any law firm is going to be able to sign an indemnification clause that tracks the language in the RFP. This is on page 7, paragraph 6. It basically said that the law firm would indemnify the college and anyone associated with the college for any action that arises out or is any way attributable to the acts or failure to act of the attorney, any claims and losses resulting from any and all attorney firms, from any and all claims and losses accruing as a result of any person, firm, or corporation in the performance of this agreement. I mean, what the attorney for the Board of Trustees' obligation is to advise the board on issues that come before it, answer questions, be challenged with your questions. And our obligation is to give you our best advice. And it's your obligation to consider that advice and decide what to do with it. And law firms have malpractice insurance, which insures us for claims arising out of professional negligence, which would be the allegation. That's what we're insured for. No law firm carries insurance to basically to indemnify the board or the college or anyone associated with the college. So that would be something we would have to look at, and just through full disclosure, I wanted to bring that to your attention. If you just read this, you would never sign it, and if we give it to our insurance carrier, they could say, well, you can sign it, but you better make sure that you can indemnify the college through your own bank account. I don't anticipate that'd be a problem, but that we would have to get a reasonable agreement. I mean, we've represented municipalities before, and the obligation is that, I mean, we would agree to indemnify the trustees and the college for any negligent or tortious act that we committed through providing legal services. But there would have to be a finding of legal malpractice.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration, and I think we could do an outstanding job for you.
Nobody left? Hello.
Hello.
Howdy.
Did you get lonely in that room?
A little bit.
Yeah?
It's uncomfortable sitting with a bunch of lawyers, you know?
Could we wait just a minute?
Sure.
We're missing one trustee.
Right.
So, and you waited this long,
that's right.
so.
I'm in no hurry. No problem. Okay, sure.
Make sure you talk into the mic because he will come and chastise you for that.
Okay.
Would you like to start by just telling us a little bit about your firm?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Well, good evening to everybody. Nice to meet you all. My name is Dan Kelly. I'm the founder of the Kelly Firm. Also with me is Nancy Oland. Nancy primarily practices in the labor human resources field and has probably 30 years of experience in that. And she can go over it a little bit, but let me just tell you a little bit about the firm. I've been a lawyer for 35 years. I was with a fairly large firm in Troy, Michigan, Gianmarco Mullins and Horton, for 27 years. When I left, I was chair of their governmental entity department. For the last 8 years, I was on their board of directors. And I decided to start my own law firm. It's just under 7 years ago. We now have grown to 8 lawyers. I have an experience of being on boards. If you looked at my resume, I was on the Oakland Community College Board of Trustees for 6 years. I was elected by that board to be its chair for 3 years. And then for the last 8 years, I was on the Michigan State University Board of Trustees, where I was also elected as its chair, but I was also, more importantly, from my perspective as a professional lawyer, I was chair of its audit, risk, and compliance for 6 of those 8 years. So I worked hand in hand with the general counsel for MSU, and I was also on the audit, risk, and compliance for OCC as well. So for really the past 14 years, in addition to my professional experience, I've worked in the shoes of a lot of the board members here, managing litigation on behalf of 2 of the larger, one of the largest community colleges, and I think MSU is the largest by student base anyway of the universities in the state of Michigan. So that's been a great experience for me. If you looked at the firm resume, we do just governmental work, but it's primarily heavily based on municipal, our client base right now. There's a couple of reasons for that. Because of my role on these public boards, school boards, I shied away from school work for the last couple of years. But the reality is that for the first 26 years of my career as a lawyer, that's all I did. 70% of what I did was schoolwork. So I think I have a great experience. There's a lot of overlap between, obviously, municipalities and school districts. Whether you're talking about FOIAs or Open Meetings Acts or board governance issues, all of those are really the same issues that face both municipalities and school districts. So for those 27 years, I don't think there's much that I didn't handle on behalf of a school district throughout the state. And I represented a ton of the colleges, universities, as well as K through 12 school districts. So why don't I let Nancy do a little talking a little bit about her background and then jump into the questions. Don't want to keep you here all night.
So thank you. Hi. Again, like Dan said, my main area of focus is in the human resources, labor, and employment area. I served for local governments for the majority of my career. I've just been on the other side of the table, but I'm still representing the employer the way that I did when I worked for those government entities. So I have been at every level, from entry level to executive within a governmental entity, and then I've served for human resources, covering strategic planning, discrimination, all the way through just general policy design, and obviously union negotiations and labor and contract and grievance issues. Looking forward to giving an opportunity to answer some more questions, but I do want to say that I have come across and I do have particular interest in things that would support the community college with relations to the Public Employment Relations Act and the special provisions related to employment issues for schools, as well as the Michigan Persons with Disabilities Act, which has some carve-outs for schools that aren't covered under the standard ADA, the federal law, which is important for somebody representing a school to have an understanding that there are some more entitlements provided by Michigan than what's under the federal regulation. So that's just a little brief overview of me. I'm happy to jump in on questions.
John?
We're in the process of hiring a board attorney, and we already have legal counsel for the college. What do you see as being the relationship between board attorney and the general legal counsel for the college?
That's a great question, and I've been dealing with it both as a board member as well as advising boards. And the relationship between the administration and the board is always, can be a tender one. My approach with the general counsel, if I were to be selected as board counsel, would be to, one, you have to have mutual respect, and that goes for the board with the administration as well as their counsel, and communication. And if those don't line up, you're going to have issues across the board. So boards are made up of, in this case, 7 members. They all have to be respected. They all have to be informed equally, and you have to treat them equally. And I've got 13 boards that I report to right now, and half of those boards have internal disputes. It's just the nature of the business. And I think I'm pretty good with it because I've been on boards myself for over 20 years, elected boards. And it's, I view it as being, as an attorney, I represent my client. And if I'm interacting with the, I guess in this case, the university's attorney, he or she is representing their client as well. And so you have to work very similar to how a board would work with the administration.
One of the things that recently I've struggled with is the difference between the law and ethics. And we have a code of ethics, but it doesn't always line up with what the law apparently says. I'm not an attorney, so I don't even tend to know that stuff. But I have a tough time with that balancing act, because if you make your decisions based solely on what the law says and ignore the code of ethics, why even bother to have a code of ethics?
Right.
You know, it's just a piece of paper that sits there and gathers dust. It means nothing. On the other hand, if you're going to have a code of ethics, I would think, you know, one, it's going to have to deal with set standards to say, if you're going to be on the board of trustees or a senior employee at this agency, you have to function at a higher level than what the law simply requires. And I'm just curious about what your thought is on the balance between those two.
So you're right, the law is, in my opinion, and generally the case, the law is the base, and then the code of ethics for organizations that pass a code of ethics is putting in place a higher standard. There's always interpretations about whether or not this is within the code of ethics or not, and when you're talking about elected boards, that's a different issue, because elected boards, it's not, quite frankly, a board can do very little about enforcing the code of ethics against an elected official.
That's correct.
So you have to have buy-in, and I think the best way to do it is through communicating with all the board members, treating them all with respect, regardless of their position or their interpretation of the code of ethics, so that I believe that most people, if they truly understand what the purpose of the code of ethics is, it's not a gotcha, it's not to catch people, to embarrass them in the public, or even to get them unelected. If that's not the purpose behind it, the purpose behind it is, as you said, is to put a little bit of a higher standard so that the entire organization can look up to that higher standard. I think people will buy into it. I've had my own issues with the Michigan State Board of Trustees. I don't know if you guys read the newspapers, but we had issues where we thought that board members had violated the code of ethics. And there's not much we can do other than sanction them publicly, refer them to the governor, which is very unlikely that anything's going to happen. But what I have found is that once people believe that you're using the code of ethics as a gotcha, you'll never get buy-in. So you've got to start at the very beginning with, we're not going to use this as a gotcha. We're going to want everybody to buy into it for the right reasons. And then if there's continued breaches of it, well, that's a different issue. But sometimes I think people breach the code of ethics out of ignorance, and then they get their backs up against the wall and they start fighting, they fight about it. And that's what you try to avoid, I think.
I was noticing you're looking at your charge schedule. Is that a portal to portal, or do you charge based on when you show up for a meeting here?
Yeah, we charge when we show up. We don't, personally, I live about 25 minutes from the college. I live in Clarkston.
And if we were to select you or select the firm, you would be our principal legal counsel. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes. I've looked at the schedule, so if your meetings, I'm excited to get back into schoolwork, to be honest with you. There's been a little bit of an absence here for 5 or 6 years while I built up this firm. But I was really actually doing schoolwork and university work for the last 14 years while I sat on these boards. So I'm excited to do that.
Well, when you were at either MSU or at Oakland?
Oakland Community College.
During that time, what was the most difficult issue you had to address?
Well, at MSU, it was the Nassar litigation that I started. Nassar was actually in jail when I got elected, so I wasn't on the board while he was an employee there, but I had to deal with the fallout from it. And then I would just say in the last year, with some of the stuff, if you're not familiar with what happened, there were a couple of board members in the MSU board, both of whom I get along with very well, and I respect them. And I think they had their heart in the right place. But for whatever reason, they did some things that were counterproductive. In fact, at least the allegations were working behind the interim president with students to possibly make that interim president look bad. Let's just leave it at that. These are allegations, they're not proven. Sure. And I think they did that for what they believed the right reasons. I just don't think they had a really good understanding of what good board governance is. And I think that as somebody, that's what I understand better than anything else. I've been on boards and I've been advising boards for over 35 years. And what the role of the board is something I have a very clear understanding of. And I just think sometimes elected officials, early on in their election, possibly, they don't quite understand it. And I think if you start off right at the beginning with what your role is, and not to necessarily get down into the weeds or the day-to-day, but what your role is that's going to help the college and the university. So those were the difficult things I had at MSU, both the Nassar and the most recent removal of the chair.
Okay, that, I can't think of anything else right now.
Okay, thanks.
To bounce off the first question that John had said, because we've had problems with conflict of interest and ethics, I just want to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest between any of us trustees, the college, or the law firm itself.
Yeah, I don't know anybody on the board. I don't think I've met anybody on the board. The firm itself does not have any conflicts, business or otherwise, with the college. Nor do I see us representing any entity that would be contrary or adversarial with the college. So I don't see a conflict.
All right, my question has to do with DEI. Mott Community College recognizes that diversity, equity, and inclusion are essential to Mott Community College's mission and the core of the MCC experience. We live in a multicultural community, and we have a multicultural student body as well as labor force. With the Dear Colleague letter that just came out of the Department of Education, as well as the executive orders that are coming out of the White House, what kind of pre-work are you doing that would help us be able to get through this without damaging our students? Because if we're found on the wrong side of this, then our federal grants are threatened. But our very core is that we serve a multicultural, and we recognize that we serve a multicultural student body. So I'd like to get some discussion on that, and then if you would, talk to us a little bit about Title IX investigations.
Sure. Okay, sure. I'll let Nancy maybe address the employee part of your question, because it's both student and employee based. We were beginning to just deal with this. I came off the MSU board December 31st, and we were just beginning to deal with what was pretty well known, that there was going to be a dramatic shift in DEI funding and pressures put on universities to cut back with DEI. The actual strategic plan for MSU was heavily written with DEI issues at the forefront, and so it's been the core of, I would say, most of the universities in the state of Michigan throughout the country. So there's going to be a period here of transitioning. I personally believe that the Trump administration will not be as dramatic, I guess, as people are expecting, to be honest with you. I think a lot of what is happening right now is adjustment that will level itself out. But to your question, we'll have to deal with it, and we'll deal with it in terms of the questions and the legal questions that come up. And if there's flat-out threats to grants and/or other funding mechanisms, which, as you probably know, can be the lifeblood of any university in the country, federal funding, for example, then you have to deal with it. And we'll have to deal with exactly what the mandates are. And at the same time, if it's the will of the university and the board to maintain DEI programs, then we'll do the best to cut that fine line. But where it's going right now is still a little bit up in the air. So on the employee side of it, is there anything more to add?
I think that with related to DEI, I have been following a lot of the releases and what are the expectations are and how that's going to impact labor and employment and things like discrimination and DEI programs. I think that I would just reiterate a little bit of what Dan said, is it's really going to depend on the will of the board and what their expectations are, and give us directions so that we can help the board navigate any changes that are released under the Trump administration that might affect, so that they are compliant with the law and then also compliant and meeting the expectations of this board. And it will just be a matter of helping you get from point A to point B without violating either. And it will just take review and a lot of communication between us and maybe some working together on redesigning language related to policy or how it's presented so that it is compliant. I think that's what lawyers have traditionally done, is you give them an assignment and you can make it mean more than one thing, you know, based upon how you interpret it or how you can craft language and move through that process. I'll let Dan chime back in on Title IX. My experience with that has been, I've had a few opportunities to support student athletes that were pursuing Title IX types of issues on their behalf related to discriminatory issues or the university not responding appropriately to claims or not taking up appropriate investigations, and so following up on students' behalf to help encourage those institutions to take the appropriate action to make sure that those students were protected. Some of them were specific more to like domestic violence and things like that, which do impact the discriminatory piece. So I have had that exposure with Title IX, but I believe Dan can probably expand on that as well.
Yeah, thanks. So with respect to the Title IX, in particular liability issues, for probably 12 to 15 years, I'm certified in audit, risk, and compliance as a lawyer, and I would say 25 to 30 K through 12, primarily school districts, hired me to come in and do their Title IX training with regard to sexual harassment and potential claims under 1983 as well as Title IX. So I did that for 15 years of my career, and it really grew out of having represented school districts in lawsuits where Title IX claims were made, as well as 1983 claims, which are both federal statutes that interact quite a bit together. So done a lot of that. Tried, I'm going to guess 30 federal court cases involving 1983 Title IX claims. And when I say litigate those, I tried those right to a conclusion. Did a lot of trial work as a younger lawyer.
Are you good, Art? Okay. I just, as far as municipalities, you say you've represented some. Any around Genesee County?
Well, not in Genesee County. Lapeer County I represent. Orion Township, Independence Township, Auburn Hills, Pontiac, and as far as Macomb Township and Grosse Pointe Park, Garden City. I mean, I've around the Detroit metropolitan area, I have clients in a 50-mile circle. So none in Genesee just yet.
Okay, and last question is, how many years ago did you say you worked with Julius?
Oh, you know Julius?
Yeah, he did my family trust work.
I was going to say, well, then you must have a little bit of money. No, I'm joking.
He was just bragging about Julius being the best that he probably thinks in the state for that type of work. Just like half an hour ago, he was just bragging about it.
He came highly recommended, yeah.
He's a great guy. And I worked with Julius for 28 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the guys that hired me way back when I was a puppy, yeah. And in fact, my wife and I were just in there last year to redo my trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. We used to love Julius because, you know, depending upon the day, you could have like a Tom Izzo or a Kid Rock in the lobby, and his secretary would give everybody a call, hey, Kid Rock's in the lobby, and everybody would run up there to see him. You know, but he did everybody in the state, it seemed like.
All right, well, thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah.
And we'll let you know.
Very good, thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, long night for you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, can the audience hold it down a little bit? All right, if it's all right with you guys, I'm going to recess this meeting until a week from tonight, and next Monday night at 5:30. Does that work for everybody?
Jeff, I do have a council meeting on Monday.
Okay. Did you want to do, what,
7.
2? What time is your?
It's 7 unless they have a committee meeting beforehand. I won't know until probably Thursday.
All right, so you're free up until a little after 6?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, can we start on Monday? Can we start at 5? Would that, Art, will that work for you?
4?
Has to be Monday because I will be gone for a week after that.
Okay.
So
All right. Yeah, we
Yeah,
could
my
start at
concern,
4 or
and I can-
4:30. It doesn't matter to me. It's
Well-
whatever you guys can do.
Is what I'm looking at is, you're gonna, when are you gonna have to be out of there?
Oh, it depends, usually
I'm sorry?
9, 8, sometimes
When does it start?
7, usually. If I have a committee meeting, it's usually before the council, but I won't know that until
See,
Thursday.
and that's what I'm saying, is with our being on after that, back it up to 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Well, how about we start at 4? Because we do have to go into closed session. We've moved that part till, for the collective bargaining, John.
Yep.
So if we start at 4, is that good with everybody?
4 o'clock is fine.
How about people in the audience? Can you make it at 4? All right, we're in recess.
In recess, and then you'll, excuse me, leave off at item 10, board-generated ideas. That'll be the next item up on the agenda.